Chapter 741. Sweat and blood mixed together, turning into a pungent smell that even Fang Yan himself could not accept. This smell was strong for a long time, and it was difficult to hide from the hounds and the white eagles. All the disguises and traps that Fang Yan had set up previously were no longer effective, and the divine generals and priests who had received the request for reinforcements were gathering here on a large scale. They surrounded Fang Yan from all directions according to the satellite positioning system, and were constantly compressing the space that Fang Yan could move in. When the space became smaller and Fang Yan had no place to hide or take a detour, the only thing that awaited him was death. Or something even more terrifying and cruel than death, capture alive. The killing was intense. Fang Yan's gun had long been emptied of bullets, and he did not have a magazine that could be changed, so he could only use it as a heavy weapon and throw it out to smash people. For an expert of his level, even falling leaves and falling flowers could hurt people, let alone such a heavy metal weapon. Therefore, when he used the empty gun to smash the head of a divine servant, causing him to fall to the ground with his face covered in blood, his body had already burrowed into a dense wild banana bush. "He's a demon, kill this demon." Requesting reinforcements, he ran into the banana forest, reporting the latitude. "Everyone spread out, be careful of his sneak attacks." This small team originally had more than 20 people, but in the process of chasing Fang Yan found an opportunity to kill more than a dozen of them. They only had about 10 people now, and they were in hot pursuit, waiting for reinforcements. The divine generals and priests would also know their current movements based on the satellite positioning system on them. In addition, they had to be on guard against Fang Yan's counterattack and the annihilation of the entire team. They were not afraid of death, and they had long given their lives and everything to the gods, but they did not want to die in the hands of a demon. Fang Yan used his brilliant skills and sharp killing methods to obtain their recognition, and became the demon, in their words. The sky was getting darker, and the air was getting thicker. They were no longer breathing fresh oxygen, but an unknown substance that was warm like burning gypsum. It was going to rain. "Let's have a rain," Fang Yan thought to himself. His body could adapt to any kind of environment, but he really didn't like this kind of suffocating work, as if he was fighting for his life in a huge wet spider web that he couldn't break free from. The banana trees were tall and dense. Large patches of leaves connected to form a barrier, blocking the vision of those who came later. The group of divine servants rushed in and found that they had lost track of Fang Yan. The commander gestured for everyone to be careful and then divided the remaining team members into 3 groups. He led one group to the center line, while the other 2 formed a fan-shaped encirclement on the left and right, heading deeper into the darkness. Swoosh! A colorful venomous snake that was more than a meter long slithered down from the top of the banana tree and pounced toward the commander who was walking at the front. It opened its sharp mouth and bit towards the commander's neck with its long and sharp fangs. Screech! A red light flashed. The commander held a gun in one hand and a tri-edge bayonet in the other. When the venomous snake pounced, he took out the bayonet and cut off the venomous snake's head. For people like them, this kind of monster really didn't have any deterrence. The snake's blood spurted out. He liked the refreshing feeling of cleanly cutting off the target's head. It would have been even better if he had cut off the heads of the 2 men in black. Just when he was praising himself in his heart, a crisis came. Fang Yan, who had disappeared without a trace, reappeared. He leaped up from the hole covered in dried leaves and crawled on the ground like a giant lizard. He stabbed the dagger in his hand at the lower 3 arteries of the divine servants. Whoosh, whoosh, he stabbed 3 times. 3 divine servants covered their crotches and rolled on the ground. The 3 men lost the joy of being a man and were castrated by him. Pa pa pa, a dense barrage of bullets flew towards Fang Yan's body that was rolling on the ground. Fang Yan rolled on the ground twice and his body once again disappeared from their sight. "He's a damn devil," they cursed angrily. Fang Yan's speed was too fast, so fast that it was simply unbelievable. When they discovered him, he had already rushed in front of them and killed them. When they raised their guns to counterattack, he disappeared again. This was not an opponent of the same level at all. Before the arrival of the black-robed divine generals and red-robed high priests, these divine servants were just a group of pitiful cannon fodder used to restrain the enemy. Just when these divine servants shouted and wanted to chase after him, Fang Yen turned around and attacked again. Screech! He threw the dagger in his hand and stabbed it into the throat of a divine servant. The divine servant covered his throat, and before he could fall to the ground, he had already flashed past him, pulled out the dagger from his throat and stabbed the chest of another divine servant. Fang Yen had to get rid of all these people. He knew that they had tracking devices on them. He didn't want them to follow him like a pack of wild dogs. Once again, the battle became intense. Gong Sun-chi was lying in a hidden tree hole, his mouth quickly chewing a ripe wild banana. He didn't escape in the direction that Fang Yen had left. Instead, he found a more secluded tree hole nearby to hide. Now was the time when the divine servants and divine generals of the Millennium Palace were searching for him. His physical condition wasn't very optimistic. If he encountered a situation where there were 7 against 1 again, he wouldn't be able to hold on. Of course, even if he encountered 1 or 2 divine generals, his situation wouldn't be optimistic either. However, he wouldn't admit this point. The injury under his armpit was very serious. Not only was his flesh cut, but even his bones were injured. Although he had used an effective genetic agent to heal the wound, it was only on the surface. The internal injury still couldn't be healed, and it would take a long time to recover. He couldn't use force or chi, and there were strong enemies in front of him and pursuers behind him. In such a dangerous ancient forest, there weren't many options left for him. Am I going to die? Gong Sun-chi suddenly had this thought. Tui tui tui. Gong Sun-chi hurriedly chased this inauspicious thought out of his head. How could he die? He was the disciple of the dragon god. He was a genius, wise, and powerful. He hadn't reached the peak of his life yet. How could he die? Before coming out to carry out the mission, he never thought about the word death, because he felt that such a thing was very far away from him. Who could kill him in this big world? But now, he had no choice but to face such a tragic and bitter problem. He could really be killed. In this strange ancient forest where there was only killing and no humanity, he had no one to rely on and was seriously injured. His only teammate. Thinking of Fang Yen, Gong Sun-chi gritted his teeth in hatred. That bastard, he abandoned his comrade just like that and ran away on his own? It's fine if I die in battle, but if I go back, I'll definitely report him. Gong Sun-chi made this decision in his heart. But soon he overturned this thought. If he went back and reported that Fang Yen had heartlessly abandoned his comrade, wouldn't that be admitting to the higher-ups that he was inferior to Fang Yen and that he had to rely on Fang Yan's help during the mission to return? This wouldn't do. The proud Gong Sun-chi wouldn't accept the fact that he was inferior to Fang Yen. I'll never go out on a mission with Fang Yen again, he thought to himself. Moreover, he shouldn't have gone out on a mission with Fang Yen in the first place. The two of them were born to be mortal enemies. His master had seriously injured his senior, so he hated his master and himself. How could he help him? It was already kind of him not to hack him to death when they met just now. Could it be that he thought that he would definitely die in his current situation, so he didn't kill him? He thought that he couldn't break out of the encirclement. Since he had nothing to do here, Gong Sun-chi opened his brain and let his imagination run wild. There were some things that he had to think about, and some things that he had to be on guard against. If Fang Yen really wanted to take this opportunity to silence him and avenge his senior, Gong Sun-chi really couldn't do anything to him. Fang Yen didn't need to do anything. He only needed to lure the godly generals to his hiding place. Thinking of this possibility, he quickly peeked outside the tree hole. With just a glance, he really did see 2 men in black robes walking towards him. They might have already discovered his whereabouts and were creeping towards him, trying to catch him off guard. Their black boots made no sound as they stepped on the grass. Even the most agile rabbit would make a louder sound than them. Gong Sun-chi threw away the banana peel in his hand and gripped the long sword at the side tightly. He was the disciple of the dragon god. Even if he died, he would die in battle. With this thought, he dashed out of the tree hole with his long sword and ran towards the forest on the left. When the 2 godly generals realized that their target had escaped, they didn't hide their whereabouts anymore. With a flap of their black robes, they chased after Gong Sun-chi. The 2 of them attacked from the left and right, one wielding a long sword and the other a trident, forming a perfect killing formation that was hard to defend against. Gong Sun Chi felt danger. He dashed a few steps forward and ran towards a tree that was more than a meter wide. He rushed up the tree trunk and ran straight towards the top of the tree. The black-robed godly general chased after him. The two of them continued to attack Gong Sun Chi from the left and right. When Gong Sun Chi was about to reach the top of the tree, he leaped forward. Riding on the wind on his sword, he was like an exiled immortal. Chapter 742. Blood, drop by drop, dripped down. The emerald green grass beneath his feet was dyed red, and even the moist soil was once again diluted into a puddle of mud. Because he had exerted too much strength, the wound under Gong Sun Chi's right rib was pulled open again. Blood seeped out from the wound and soaked his clothes, then dripped down from the corner of his clothes to the ground. His eyes were like a wolf's as he stared at the two men in black robes in front of him. They were two tall, blonde men with pale skin and deep eyes that glowed with a green light. Gong Sun Chi was a wolf, a ferocious and relentless wounded wolf that would fight to the death. They were also like wolves, greedy, noble, and bloodthirsty wolves. Gong Sun Chi held the sword in his right hand. The body of the sword, called cloak, was trembling slightly, and a pool of blood flowed out from the groove of the sword, then flowed down the tip of the sword. The blood on the sword was the enemy's blood. Gong Sun Chi desperately stabbed the divine general with Neptune's trident, and paid the price of being ruthlessly slashed by the other divine general with a long saber. That saber slashed his back, and he couldn't check the wound, but he could feel the flesh on his back being flipped open and blood spurting out like a fountain. If it wasn't for his excellent dodging skills, he would have been slashed in half by that divine general. These divine servants indeed had powers that were incomprehensible to the outside world. Gong Sun Chi's legs were weak, and he felt that he could fall at any time. He had used up all the strength in his body, or rather, all the strength in his body had been used up along with the blood that flowed out. In these 2 days, he had lost too much blood. Because of his severe injuries, every movement he made required more than 10 times the strength than before. He used his strong willpower to control his body, as well as the pride that made him feel superior at all times. He didn't want them to tremble too obviously, because that would be very embarrassing for him. Yes, he was such a proud man. In the Xian department, he was very proud because his master was the divine dragon. In front of Fang Yan, he was very proud because his master was the divine dragon. He was equally proud in front of these divine generals of the Millennium Palace because his master was the divine dragon, the most powerful man in Wuxia. These clowns. His expression was cold, but his heart was filled with disdain for these people. If I hadn't been injured, if I had been at my peak, I would have killed all of you with a swift knife. He knew that he couldn't bear the next charge in his current condition. However, the two immortal generals were still alive. Gong Sun Chi spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood dyed his mask red, leaving a choking sour taste in his throat. He reached out, pulled off his mask, and threw it away. He faced the two divine generals with his cold, handsome face. "Am I going to die?" Gong Sun Chi muttered to himself. He took out a black ribbon from his bosom and used it to tie the sword tightly to his right hand. Because his hands had no strength left, he was afraid that he would throw the sword out when he slashed. As long as this arm was still in his body, he hoped that the cloak sword would still be in his hands. This was the dignity of a swordsman. "Master, I'm sorry," Gong Sun Chi said with a face full of guilt. "You're the number one in Wuxia, but I didn't even get to learn 1/10,000th of your martial arts. I wanted to challenge the heroes of the world after I mastered the martial arts and make a name for myself. It seems like I won't have the chance to do so now. That's good too. I'll take it that you don't have a disappointing disciple like me." He thought of Fang Yan again. He really hated this guy. However, at this moment, he still hoped that he could escape from this dangerous place and return safely. What an annoying guy, Gong Sun Chi thought to himself. However, I still hope that you will be able to return safely. Because only then will we be able to return the treasures we stole, and only by returning the treasures will we be able to complete our mission. Even if I die, it won't be in vain. He tied the black ribbon into a dead knot, then used his teeth to pull it hard. He spat out a mouthful of saliva, then bent his body slightly and leaned his upper body forward in a charging posture. In his current state, it was already difficult for him to defend against the encirclement of the two divine generals. As long as they charged again, he would be chopped into meat paste. However, the remaining energy in his body was just enough for him to make one more attack, an attack with no chance of survival. Even if he died, it would be because he killed the enemy first, and then get killed. Thinking about it, he still felt embarrassed. But what could he do? To Gong Sun Chi, this was the most dignified way to die. Master. Gong Sun Chi thought for a while, then said in a deep voice, I can't kowtow to you anymore. He tightened his grip on the long sword in his hand, then rushed towards the two impatient divine generals. Rumble, a sudden clap of thunder tore through the sky, and a majestic rain poured down. Whoosh, the curtain of rain covered the heaven and earth, as if the whole world was covered by this rain of arrows. Swoosh, Gong Sun Chi fell to the ground, panting, his whole body submerged in the muddy water. There were countless wounds on his body, and a few of them had penetrated deep into his internal organs. The muddy water is too dirty, and the posture is too unsightly. Gong Sun Chi felt very uncomfortable. He really wanted to ask the two divine generals if they could help him up, or change his posture. On one hand, there was a language barrier, and on the other hand, he was even more unwilling to ask for help. I'm going to die anyway, and no one will see me when I die. He comforted himself. Kacha, the man holding the trident, walked towards him step by step. Kacha, Kacha. His boots stepped on the muddy water, making a piercing sound. Where is the divine weapon? He asked in a language that no one could understand. Gong Sun Chi lay there motionlessly, thinking, is this guy an idiot? If you don't speak the Huaxia language, who knows what you're saying? Hand over the divine weapon, or you'll go to hell. Gong Sun Chi closed his eyes powerlessly. He could feel the sharp weapon in the man's hand. Kacha, the man in black raised the trident high and smashed it towards Gong Sun Chi's head. Swish, a silver light flashed, and the man's raised arm fell to the ground, along with the trident in his hand. The divine general holding the long blade was shocked, and rushed towards the man in black who had suddenly appeared. The man in black advanced instead of retreating, raising his sword and rushing towards him. The two brushed past each other. The man in black looked at him with a face full of unwillingness, unable to believe what had happened in front of him. Crack! The man in black's body was split into two, and the lower half of his body was still standing. Fresh blood sprayed into the air, and then it was slapped down by an even denser rain. The man with the trident looked at his arm that had been split in two, but he didn't feel any pain. He was stunned for a moment, and then the red light in his eyes blazed. Roar! Church! His body leapt high into the air, and his good arm clenched into a fist. The fist carried a strong gust of wind, and countless raindrops smashed towards the man in black's head. Swish! Another silver light flashed. The divine general's other arm was also cut off. His body flew past the man in black, blood spurting out of his body. Swish, 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 swish. The man in black's body counterattacked, and he chased after him, striking continuously. When he stopped moving, the divine general's body could no longer stand up. What happened? Gong Sun Chi opened his eyes. I'm still alive? Crack, crack. Someone walked towards him step by step and then stood in front of him. He wanted to look up, but he didn't even have the strength to do so. Half of his face was buried in the muddy water, and he struggled to breathe. If the rain had been any heavier, his whole head would have been buried. At that time, even if the divine general of Millennium Palace didn't kill him, the rain would. Are you all right? A familiar voice sounded by his ear. Gong Sun Chi's mind shook, and his groggy consciousness became much clearer. Fong Yen? He asked aloud. He didn't speak when facing those divine generals, because he was worried that his words would expose his nationality. It's me. Fong Yen pulled down the mask on his face and looked at the motionless Gong Sun Chi and asked again, Are you all right? What do you think? Gong Sun Chi said through gritted teeth. He's already like this. do you think I don't look like I'm fine? I think something is wrong. Fang Yan said seriously. I'll pull you up. Go ahead and pull me up. Do you think I'll refuse such a request? Thus, Fang Yan reached out and pulled Gong Sun Chi out of the muddy water. He leaned his upper body against a tree and took out some ointment from his pocket to treat him. You don't look good, Fang Yan said as he inspected the wounds on his body. Why did you come back? Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yan and asked. Fang Yan's arrival gave him a glimmer of hope. He knew that perhaps he wouldn't die. I hate you very much, Fang Yan said. As he spoke, he poured the potion in the bottle on the biggest wound on Gong Sun Chi's body. One bottle of potion wasn't enough, and 2 bottles weren't enough either, so he took out all the potions he had. After thinking about it, he stuffed another bottle back. I also know you hate me, Fang Yan said. I do hate you. Gong Sun Chi's voice was weak, but he said stubbornly. But I still don't want you to die, Fang Yan said in a deep voice. You and your disciple owe me, I'll get it back from you. But now, I can't let you be killed by these foreigners. I've said it before, we're brothers, comrades in arms. Gong Sun Chi's eyes were moist, and there was something tickling his throat, making him want to say something. You don't have to say anything, I can understand your feelings at this moment. I know, what I'm doing is quite touching. Fang Yan patted his shoulder gently and said, I'm lying in the muddy water and can't move. Gong Sun Chi's voice was bitter, hidden in the sound of the wind and rain, emerging bit by bit. Don't tell anyone. Chapter 743. Lotus Flower Temple. Because the temple was not famous, it usually did not receive much incense. Except for a few faithful believers who would come to burn incense and pay respects to Buddha on Buddha's birthday, almost no one paid attention to it most of the year. However, there were a few young guests at the entrance of Lotus Flower Temple today. Big brother, it's here, I asked someone. Even if you want to become a monk, you should find a better temple. Look at this temple door, it's broken, it looks like it will fall if you push it. Third sister, what are you talking about? We are here to take Xiaoxiao back. Teng ignored the dispute between his cousins. He looked at the Lotus Flower Temple located deep in the mountains and then stepped forward to knock on the copper lock of the wooden door. After knocking for a long time, no one answered. Is there anyone here? And Xiao Jun had a bad temper. He jumped up and shouted at the temple. Are the people inside deaf? Creak. The wooden door opened and a skinny old nun looked at the few young people at the door and asked, Benefactors, are you here to burn incense? Looking for someone. Teng was too lazy to talk to these nuns and said, We are here to find the phoenix. Benefactor, there is no phoenix in this small temple. The old nun said expressionlessly. Bullshit. And Xiao Jun squeezed past the old nun and stood in the courtyard and shouted, Phoenix, Phoenix, come out. The old nun was thin and weak. She was hit by Xiao Jun and almost fell to the ground. Teng quickly reached out to support the old nun and said, Nun, we are all members of the Phoenix's family. We have very important things to discuss with her. There is indeed no phoenix in this temple. The old nun said seriously. Anyone who enters my Buddhist sect has let go of the past. Now there is only a wholehearted heart to serve Buddha and a body free from the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Big brother, don't talk nonsense with this old nun. And Xiao Jun was obviously a little impatient to listen to the old nun talk about Buddhism and said, Why don't we send someone to look around? How big can this broken temple be? And Xiao Jun waved his hand and the 2 bodyguards behind them ran straight to the backyard. No need to look. A clear voice came. I'm here. Phoenix, who was dressed in a light gray robe, quickly walked over and stood in front of the 2 bodyguards in black. She said, This is a holy land of Buddhism. You can't make a racket here. When the 2 bodyguards in black saw the young miss appear, they naturally did not dare to break into the temple hall and the backyard where the nuns lived. This old thing still wants to lie. And Xiao Jun grinned and said, We already knew you were hiding here. Sister, come back with us. Shut up, shouted the Phoenix. Sis, don't be angry. And Xinyan walked to the front of Phoenix, reached out to hold her arm and said, Sister, little June has good intentions. Don't be angry with him. You've been away from home for months. Everyone's worried about you. It wasn't easy for us to find this place. We just want to bring you back. Sister, why don't you come back with us? The phoenix shook her head and said, This is my home. Where else should I go? Sister, you don't really want to be a nun, do you? And Xinyuan felt that this was a very difficult thing to understand. What reason did a family like theirs have to run to become a vegetarian nun? If my heart is dead, going back will be painful. It's better to be a monk and end my life here, said the phoenix with a firm attitude. And Teng stood in the distance and looked at his sister, Xianxia. He hadn't seen her for a while. Her appearance had become thinner, but her facial features were still as delicate as water. She wore a loose robe and gave off an ethereal feeling. However, her eye sockets were deep and dark. It seemed that the quality of her sleep these days was very poor. What was it that made her give up hope in life and still couldn't sleep in this pure Buddhist land? Because Nteng's ability and wisdom were not enough to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the family, there were many things he didn't know. Although he had some guesses in his heart, compared to the actual situation, it was still worlds apart. If he knew the truth, why would he provoke and curse Fang Yen when he met him at the palace hotel? Nteng looked at Xiaoxiao and said softly, Sister, come back with me. Brother. The phoenix glanced at Nteng and said, I've already made up my mind. Don't force me, okay? Take it as the last thing I ask of you. You should know that no one will accept your decision, Nteng said in a deep voice. The daughter of the Yin family has never become a nun. Do you know what other people think of us after this happened? Go back. If there's anything, explain it to your family. Grandpa, Grandma, and the elders in the family all like you. How could they bear to let you suffer any grievances? They all like you. How could they bear to let you suffer any grievances? Hearing this, tears were about to flow out of the phoenix's eyes. Could it be that what she had endured was still not grievance? Because of the interests of the family, she couldn't be with the boy she liked. Because of their decision, she had to act with a man she didn't like. Or was it because they were powerless when the man they deeply loved was in danger? If these weren't grievances, then what were they? Was it harm? Was it murder? Yes, they had already killed their feelings, killed their hearts, killed their hopes for the future. Killed the sunlight, the rain, the flowers, the birds, and the insects. Her world was a sheet of darkness. There are some things. Phoenix tried hard not to cry out loud. After this period of adjusting her state of mind and the power of the Buddhist scriptures, she was able to remain calm at this time. She raised her head, not letting the tears fall down from the corner of her eyes, and said, I can't explain it clearly. Xiao. Nteng was a little angry and said, What is it? Why can't you explain it clearly? We are all a family. If there's anything, we should bear it together. It's much better than you keeping it in your heart, right? I know, isn't it because of a man? I told you long ago that Fang Yen isn't a good person. I told you to keep your distance from him, but you didn't believe me. But it doesn't matter, you are still young. How did that sentence come about? Which woman hasn't fallen in love with a few idiots when they are young? Just treat him as an idiot who doesn't know how to cherish you. After a pause, Nteng said, The last time we met, I already taught him a lesson for you. If you still feel suffocated, wait until we return to Yanjing, Xiaojun and I will find him for a fight. I don't believe that a poor kid from a mountain village like him can challenge our family. You went to look for Fang Yen? The phoenix was shocked. Since I met him, I naturally had to teach him a lesson, Nteng said confidently. Since he dared to do it, why would he be afraid of others talking about him? Phoenix was so angry that she couldn't speak. She said, What right do you have to find trouble with him? Xiao. Nteng's face was pitch black and he said angrily, How can you speak to your brother like that? Even now, you are still speaking for him? Phoenix sighed softly and said, Forget it, you can go back. She looked at Xiaojun and Xinyuan and said, I appreciate your kindness, but I really don't want to go back. That family can't accommodate me. Sister, just go back with us. And Xinyuan grabbed Phoenix's arm, wanting to forcefully drag her back. Xinyu. Phoenix calmly looked at Xinyan and said, "Do you want me to die?" "Sister, I can't go back." Phoenix smiled miserably. "If I go back, I will die. I will really die," and Teng left with his cousins, full of anger and unwillingness. However, when they left, they still wrote a large check to Lotus Temple, hoping that the temple could improve their living conditions. In any case, they didn't want Phoenix to suffer too much here. What they didn't know was that Phoenix's grievance wasn't in the clothing, food, and shelter, but in her heart. After sending off Teng and the others, Phoenix closed the temple door and supported the old nun to walk to the temple hall. "Master Jingwei, they were too rude. Are you okay?" Wholeheartedly devoted to Buddha, one's saliva will dry by oneself. How can I lower myself to the level of these secular people? The old nun smiled and waved her hand. "But do you really want to spend the rest of your life in this lotus temple?" Saying this is really disrespectful to Buddha, but this old nun still wants to say one more thing. You are young, beautiful, and have a good family. You really don't need to walk on this road. Master Jingwei, my heart is already dead. What does other things have to do with me? Phoenix shook her head and sighed. The old nun smiled, the wrinkles on her face stretched out like an orange peel, and said, "If my heart is really dead, how can I sigh? How can I be sad and cry when I see my loved ones?" Master Jingwei, silly child. The old nun stroked Phoenix's head and said, "People often say that nothing is more sorrowful than a dead heart, but if the heart is really dead, how can there be sorrow? And how many people can really give up the prosperity of the world, their loved ones, and become a lonely chanting sutras? Since you can't let it go, then go out. Your brother is right, everything in the world, what can't be solved?" Phoenix shook her head and said, "Master Jingwei, you don't need to persuade me. I won't go back. These days in Lotus Temple are the most peaceful time in my heart." "Don't lie." The old nun reached out and stroked Phoenix's eyes and said, "Since you came in, when have you ever had a good sleep? You have thoughts in your heart, and that's why you can't sleep at night. Your heart is not with Buddha, but with that man outside. Buddha has always been here, but that man outside may not always be waiting for you in the same place." Phoenix's expression was sad, and her heart was like thorns. Chapter 744. Her heart was originally as calm as still water, but the arrival of her family stirred up her mood again. Master Jinghui was right. Because there was resentment and hatred, she couldn't sleep at night. If some problems weren't solved, she was afraid that those messy emotions would torment her until she went crazy. However, how could such a thing be solved? That wounded heart, that gloomy world, could it be restored to its original state? Full of grievances and strong melancholy, she returned to her room, only to find that there was another man in her room. Lotus Temple didn't have many incense offerings, so there were very few nuns here. Including Phoenix, there were only 7 people in total, each of whom could have a separate room. If you wanted, you could have 2 or even 3 rooms. The man's back was facing Phoenix. Kneeling on the futon, she chanted and prayed to every day, kneeling in front of the statue of Guanyin in the room. His body was straight, making his back particularly slender and strong. His waist was like a bee's, his long hair draped over his shoulders. Even if one couldn't see his face, one could feel that he was a handsome and affectionate man. His mouth was murmuring, his voice was hurried but indistinct. It was difficult to tell what he was saying. He was so focused that he didn't seem to notice that there was a woman watching behind him. Phoenix looked at the man's back, her body stiff and her face ashen. She wanted to retreat, but in the end she stood there without moving. "Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you?" the man said aloud. His voice was gentle, with a husky magnetism. He was just praying to Guanyin Bodhisattva, but in the blink of an eye he asked such a cold and ruthless question. He was like a gentleman robber, but also like an elegant pervert. "No." The moment she heard the man's voice, Phoenix suddenly became quiet. She looked at the man and said aloud, "If you kill me, all the karma will disappear at once. The body will be freed, and the mind will reach the other side. Although this solution is not perfect, perhaps, at that time, I can really have a good sleep." "Reach the other side?" The man's voice was calm, but Phoenix could still hear a trace of mockery. There's no such thing as a pure land of heaven in this world? Does that world have it? If all the eminent monks were as pure as they claimed, why would they need to enjoy the incense of their believers and build their golden bodies? That world is even dirtier than the human world, right? You have hatred for this world, the Phoenix said. What about you? The man got up and turned around to look at Phoenix, who was wearing the monk's robe. How are you doing? Phoenix shook her head. I hate myself. I can understand how you feel at this moment. The man grinned, but when he smiled, he did not make any sound. It was faint and fleeting. You have 2 regrets and 2 regrets. You hate your family. You hate them for ruining your life. You hate yourself for not having the courage to change your fate. You felt guilty towards Fang Yan. You loved him deeply, ever since you were young, but in the end, you hurt him. You also feel guilty towards me. You don't like me, but you always use me. I couldn't bear to kill you, but they used it to kill me. Phoenix's face paled. This man really did understand her. It was much deeper than she had thought. One of her hands was still holding on to the door frame, and the hand holding the door frame cracked against the fragile door. I've let Fang Yan down and I've let you down, Phoenix said. I don't know if I've let you down more or Fang Yan down more. The more I don't understand this problem, the more I hate my family, the more I hate myself. Ever since that happened, I haven't been able to sleep well. Remorse seeps into my bones, and a poisonous snake bites at my heart. The man sighed softly. Do you know why I was kneeling in front of Guanyin Bodhisattva? Phoenix shook her head. I don't know. I heard you say a long time ago that you don't worship Buddha, and you don't believe in ghosts? Yes. I don't worship Buddha, and I don't believe in ghosts. But maybe they really exist in this world? The man said softly. He looked into Phoenix's eyes with pity. I can understand that the family wants to take you back. Your uncles are people who care a lot about face. How could they allow their women to become nuns? I heard the conversation between you and them. I also heard the conversation between you and that old nun. I know you haven't had a good sleep for a long time. You look very tired. I knelt in front of Buddha and recited the Medicine Buddha's enlightenment mantra for you. I hope Bodhisattva can bless you with no illness or disaster, and let you have a sweet dream. Phoenix's eyes were moist. Why bother? The man grinned. If I was in a novel or a movie, I would be the #1 bad guy in the world. But bad guys also have feelings. Bad guys can also fall in love with a woman. From the first time they see her, day after day, year after year. Even if they know she likes another man, even if they know she's just playing, they're still willing to endure it. Why did you come out? Phoenix said in a choked voice. Everyone thought you were dead. I also thought you were dead. I also thought I was dead. The man squinted his eyes and laughed. But I came back to life. When I opened my eyes, even I was shocked. Bai Xiu, go away. Go far away and don't come back. Phoenix pulled the man's arm, wanting to drive him out, to a place where no one could find him. I will go. Bai Xiu looked at Phoenix and said, I'm here to take you away. Phoenix shook her head and said, I won't go. I won't go anywhere. I live here. There are mountains, water, and Buddhist scriptures. Your attitude towards life is too negative. The man said, you should have a more colorful life. I can give you such a life. Fang Yan doesn't have such courage. Bai Xiu, the man stretched his body and chopped Phoenix's neck with his hand. Phoenix's body was already weak. She fainted immediately after receiving this blow. The man picked up Phoenix's body that was about to fall. He looked at her delicate and flawless face and said, you see, you are also very beautiful like this. With that, he pushed the door with Phoenix in his arms and wanted to leave. Put her down. A clear man's voice came. The voice was very abrupt, but it was so clear, as if someone was shouting in his ear. The man's footsteps paused as he looked at the tall man standing at the corner of the lotus pond in front of the courtyard. The man sat on a big rock with a small flower in his mouth. His posture was lazy, as if he had just woken up. Bai Lilu, the man said in a deep voice. his voice was still calm. The miraculous appearance of Bai Lilu did not make him feel that it was ridiculous. He was a person who had died once. What else could make him feel strange? Put it down. Buddha said to put it down. Bai Lilu was still sitting on the big rock. He plucked the small flower from his mouth and played with it in his hand. You want to stop me? Bai Xiu stared coldly at Bai Lilu and asked. Bai Xiu, you're actually not dead yet? TSK. Bai Lilu clicked his tongue. He looked very regretful that Bai Xiu was still alive. You said you died well. Why did you come back to life? Don't you know that what you're doing is very immoral? Life and death is a very serious matter. You're alive one moment and you're dead the next. Isn't this cheating people's feelings? After knowing that you died, the people of Swallow Dock were happy for who knows how long. Now that you're alive again, aren't we happy for nothing? Swallow Dock. Bai Xiu smiled coldly and said, one day, I'll make those arrogant people pay the price. That's a bit too much. Who scolds themselves like that? Bai Lilu chuckled and said, everyone in Swallow Dock knows that before you revealed your true nature, you were the most arrogant person in Swallow Dock. Of course, we've never treated you as a member of Swallow Dock. You're just a little bastard who mingles in Swallow Dock. Bai Xiu's eyes flashed with killing intent. He stared at Bai Lilu and asked, did Fang Yan send you? What do you think? Bai Lilu said unhappily, I'm not interested in the little girl in your arms. I just happened to go back to do something and drank a few bowls of his wine. Then, he threw me into this broken temple deep in the mountains to wait for a rabbit to come to me. I know you're very unhappy to see me, but can you understand how I feel? Bai Xiu was greatly shocked, but his face didn't show it. He asked, Fang Yan knows I'm still alive? How could he know you're still alive? He told me with certainty that he stabbed you to death with a sword. For this, he even ran to father's grave with a large barrel of wine and got drunk. Then, you think it's strange? I think it's strange too. He clearly killed you, so why did he ask me to come and protect this little girl? Bai Lilu shook his thick head and said, although I don't want to admit it, Fang Yan is indeed the smartest guy in our group. Many times, I don't know what he's thinking. He asked me to come, so I came. Bai Lilu looked at the phoenix in Bai Xiu's arms and said, put her down. You can leave or stay. It doesn't matter to me. You're courting death. Bai Xiu snorted coldly, his words filled with killing intent. Chapter 745. I really am courting death. Bai Lilu laughed heartily and said, I deliberately found this place to send you to your death. I can definitely help make up for what Fang Yan didn't do well. He missed, but I won't. He's too kind and only stabbed you once. If I have the chance, I'll smash your head. I don't believe you'll have a chance to come back to life that way. You're the same as Fang Yan. You like to play these boring word games. Bai Xiu disdained Bai Lilu's threat and strode towards the back of the mountain with the phoenix in his arms. Clearly, he had just broken into the lotus temple from the back of the mountain. Bai Lilu still maintained a smiling expression on his face, looking like he didn't care at all. He bent the middle finger of his right hand and flicked the nameless flower in his hand in Bai Xiu's direction. Whoosh! The small flower whistled through the air, creating a fierce gust of wind. Bai Xiu tilted his head and dodged the small flower's attack. The small flower smashed into the wooden door of the room, creating a small hole in the door from the seemingly weak flower. The flower was embedded in the small hole, like a withered door regaining its vitality and blooming a fresh flower. When Bai Xiu tilted his head to dodge the flower, Bai Lilu had already jumped down from the boulder and suddenly lifted the millstone-sized boulder he was sitting on. He didn't directly use the boulder as a killing weapon. Instead, he raised the long boulder with both hands and slammed it towards Bai Xiu. He used the boulder as a handy weapon. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Bai Lilu charged forward with the boulder. His body was submerged in the boulder, and from Bai Xiu's point of view, Bai Lilu seemed to have become one with the boulder. The boulder moved against the wind, intending to smash Bai Xiu and the phoenix in his arms with a devastating force. Bai Xiu's forward step stopped. Just as the boulder was about to land on his head, he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and floated backwards along with the strong wind carried by the boulder. This move was similar to Fang Yan's drunken crane riding the wind. Bai Xiu's body floated in the air like a crane, and Bailey Lu's slap missed. Kacha, the 1,000-pound boulder slammed onto the floor, creating a large pit on the moss-covered green brick floor. The 1,000-pound boulder in Bailey Lu's hand also broke into 2 pieces. Bai Lilu's momentum did not diminish. As his body leaped high like a rock spreading its wings, he fiercely smashed the remaining half of the boulder in his hand toward Bai Xiu in the air. Hoo! The boulder was as fast as lightning, hurtling towards Bai Xiu in front of him. Bai Xiu sensed the danger. As he retreated, he kicked at the incoming boulder with all his might. Crack! The boulder changed direction and smashed towards Bai Xiu, who was hot on his heels. Go to hell, Bailey Lu threw a punch. Voila! Bailey Lu punched a hole through the big rock, and gravel flew everywhere. Kacha! The stones floated in the air for a while before falling to the ground. It collided with the brick wall and the bluestone tiles on the ground a second time, producing a crisp sound of bones shattering. Due to the obstruction of these gravel attacks, the distance between Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu gradually increased. Bai Xiu gently landed with the unconscious Phoenix in his arms. His feet stood in front of the small door of the bedroom where Phoenix lived. Clang! Bailey Lu's huge body also landed, directly causing the bluestone tiles under his feet to protrude. When he left, a pair of clear footprints would be left on the ground. It was a long story, but all of this happened in a flash. From the time Bailey Lu threw the small flower attack to the time the two landed, only a few seconds had passed. Bailey Lu grinned. The fight just now was very satisfying. It's been a long time since I've had such a good fight. Bailey Lu laughed and said, It's still satisfying to fight with you. I don't care if I kill or cripple you. I can play however I want. Fang Yan can't do it. When he fights, he's like a sissy. If he's not hiding closely, then he'll circle far away. Before I can even throw a punch, he'll already disappear. The more I fight, the more frustrated I feel. Bai Xiu really wanted to tell Bailey Lu that he had misunderstood Fang Yan. Fang Yan was not the kind of person he thought he was. Bai Xiu was a madman, but he was crazier than you. When he was determined to kill someone, he could even throw away his own life. Bai Xiu still felt a lingering fear when he thought of the battle on the top of One Sword Peak. That was a sure kill situation. What was a sure kill situation? It meant that they had to kill Fang Yan tonight. If they didn't kill him, they would be struck by lightning and cursed by the gods. In the end, they were killed. No matter how great the screenwriter was, it would be embarrassing to write such a shameless plot. Even villains have their own dignity, okay? Villains also had to maintain their dignity, okay? Now that he heard Bailey Lu say that Fang Yan was a sissy when he fought, Bai Xiu really wanted to reply with one word. Are you blind? Bailey Lu looked at Phoenix in Bai Xiu's arms and said, Put the woman down. Let's have a good time first. You've been knocked down by me. You can't leave, and you can't take the girl away. You've knocked me down, so you can do whatever you want. Anyway, I can't stop you. Isn't this very straightforward? That's how it should be, Bai Xiu said. He looked at Bailey Lu with admiration and said, Among the younger generation of Swallow Fort, you're the only guy that I don't hate. Is this a confession? Bailey Lu grinned and said, But the person I like the most is Fang Yan. He's such a cheap person. When you're with him, you either want to scold him or beat him up. It's easy to become good friends while fighting and scolding. That's a pity. Bai Xiu shook his head and said. Bai Xiu spread Phoenix's body on the floor in front of Guanyin Bodhisattva and let her head rest on a cushion so that she could sleep better. He did this very carefully and his eyes were affectionate. He looked like a newlywed husband taking care of his drunk wife. Bailey Lu sighed softly at this scene. No matter what this person's character was, at least he liked Phoenix. He thought of Fang Yan again. What about Fang Yan? Did Fang Yan like Phoenix? The person he liked was Yi Rou, and they were now boyfriend and girlfriend, and the Yi family wanted him to marry Yi Rou and become their son-in-law. It's a mess. Bailey Lu shook his head desperately. He liked to fight to his heart's content and didn't like to think about these headache-splitting complicated things. After Bai Xiu settled Phoenix down, he walked back to the entrance of the small courtyard and stood still. Fight to my heart's content? Fight to my heart's content. Although your 100 miles godly fist has improved a lot, you should know that you're no match for me. I don't know, Bailey Lu said. When it comes to fighting to the death, I won't admit defeat no matter who comes. Bai Xiu nodded and didn't say anything else. He was ready to fight. Stop! An old voice rang out. At the same time, a group of nuns trotted toward the backyard. The noise in the backyard was so loud, with loud shouts and breaking stones, that the nuns chanting in front were all alarmed. Seeing two strange men appear in the backyard, the abbot of the temple immediately shouted, "Pure land of Buddhism, don't be rude." Old Nun Jing Hui stared at Bai Xiu and Bailey Lu angrily. These two people actually dared to come here to fight. Did they have any respect for Buddha? Abbot, they must be here for Phoenix. Where's Phoenix? Go see how Phoenix is doing now. Because Abbot Jing Hui felt that Phoenix's 6 roots were not yet fulfilled, she refused to shave her head. Although Phoenix had been accompanying them to eat vegetarian food and serve Buddha, she was only a layman and couldn't be called a true Buddhist disciple. The nuns in Lotus Temple all liked the intelligent and beautiful Phoenix, so they had always called her by her original name. 2 middle-aged nuns shouted "Phoenix" as they ran toward the hut where Phoenix lived. "Phoenix, Phoenix!" Bai Xiu stepped forward and blocked in front of them. They moved a few steps, wanting to bypass Bai Xiu and rush into the hut. Just as they were about to do so, Bai Xiu appeared in front of them once again. "Get out of the way!" A middle-aged nun with hemorrhoids at the corner of her lips shouted angrily. "You should know that there are no gods or Buddhas in this world." Bai Xiu looked into the nun's eyes and said, "So, if I attack you, no one can protect you." I've said it very clearly," Bai Xiu said expressionlessly. With a flick of his sleeve, the 2 middle-aged nuns' bodies flew into the air and fell backward as if they had suffered a heavy blow. Bailey Lu took a step forward and picked up the 2 middle-aged nuns' bodies and put them on the ground. He stared coldly at Bai Xiu and said with a face full of mockery, "How mighty, not even letting 2 monks go." "Monks are also human," Bai Xiu said. "Anyone who makes a mistake should pay the price." This sentence sounds familiar. "It's Fang Yan who said it," Bai Xiu said. "When Fang Yan wanted to kill me, he said this. I think what he said is very reasonable." Clang, Bailey Lu walked toward Bai Xiu step by step. With every step he took, his foot that landed on the ground would leave a hole in the bluestone bricks. "Anyone who makes a mistake should pay the price," Bailey Lu said in a hoarse voice. "Now, it's your turn to pay the price for your mistake." Bai Xiu looked at Bailey Lu's feet and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Bailey Lu, who he did not take seriously before, seemed to have grown up at an astonishing speed. "100 godly fists destruction of heaven and earth," Bai Xiu said softly. "I want to see how you are going to destroy this heaven and earth." Chapter 746. Bai Xiu's complexion was like jade, and he was incomparably handsome. But there was a hint of violence in his eyes. He didn't look like someone easy to deal with. Bai Lu was majestic, cool, and unrestrained. His every movement was natural and without any scheming, and his eyes were clear, even a little childlike. He gave people the feeling of a child who couldn't grow up. They faced each other. The battle was about to begin. Bai Lu looked at Bai Xiu with a smile and said, "Teacher once said that Bai Xiu is good with the sword, better than me. I've wanted to experience your thunder sword for a long time. I didn't think I'd get the chance until today." "Congratulations," Bai Xiu said calmly. Ever since he was killed by Fang Yan once, he didn't feel any joy or sorrow. His heart was as still as water. He was alive, but his heart was dead. Now he suddenly realized, what else was there in the world that was worth his longing for? "Congratulations for finally having the chance to fight with you? Congratulations for finding me now. If you challenged me a long time ago, you would have died a long time ago. You think you can make me angry like this?" Bai Lu laughed and said, To be honest, when it comes to verbal attacks, you're not even as good as Fang Yen. Even he can't make me angry, how can you mess up my state of mind? I didn't want to make you angry, nor did I want to mess up your state of mind, I'm just stating a fact. You've been killed by Fang Yen once, I didn't think you're still so arrogant. Do you really think there's no other talent in Swallow Dock besides you? Of course there is, Bai Xiu said. Fang Yen has the heart of Tai Chi, a rare genius in Taoism, he can be counted as one. Yi Wenro entered Taoism from martial arts, she almost reached the heavenly Tao realm, she can also be counted as one. The others are just so-so, I've never taken you seriously. Bai Li Lu laughed out loud and said, Bai Xiu, you've improved. I thought you thought I was number one in the world, and the others were no match for you. After being stabbed by Fang Yen, he finally understood that there was always someone better than him. You said that Fang Yen and Yi Ro were talents of Swallow Dock, and I admit that. Also, they have fought with you before, using their true strength to conquer you. Bai Lilu stomped his feet and charged towards Bai Xiu, shouting, Now, let me do this. Bai Lilu's body was like an angry rhinoceros. His feet were like the iron hooves of a rhinoceros. Every step he took made a big hole in the bluestone floor. There was no gravel in the hole, only powder. White mist lingered in the depths of the footprints, carrying the smell of scorched earth. Bai Lilu's body was very heavy, but his punches were very light. Of course, the fist was extremely fast, reaching Bai Xiu's chest in the blink of an eye. There was no gust of wind or thunder. The nuns watched as the two men flew up, watched as they fought with their lives, watched as they crushed the hard green bricks on the ground, watched as their bodies flew into the air. Do gods really exist in this world? They couldn't help but think. Remembering that this was a great disrespect to Buddha, they hurriedly threw such absurd and rude thoughts out of their minds. Bai Xiu leaned against the stone wall, his sharp eyes staring at Bai Lilu, who was sneering on the opposite side. I've said it before, now it's my turn to prove it, Bai Lilu said with a smile. How does it feel? This is not the Bailey family's fist style, Bai Xiu said in a low voice. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and used it to wipe the bloodstain at the corner of his mouth. This is the Bailey family's fist style, Bai Lilu said with a proud face. Starting from me, it will become the Bailey family's fist style. What do you mean? Because I'm the one who comprehended this fist style. Everyone knows that the Bailey family's godly fist style is the strongest, and the Bailey family members have consciously developed in that direction. Bailey Feng, the heavenly son of heaven, displayed the strongest side of the Bailey family's godly fist style to the extreme, and almost conquered the heavenly Tao. Bai Lilu's expression was regretful, and he said in a low voice, But, it's still not enough. No matter what, it's still not enough. Not only did he not conquer the heavenly Tao, but he also suffered from the backlash of the heavenly Tao, and finally committed suicide. This is the Bailey family's biggest loss. It was also from then on that the Bailey family realized a problem. Is the Bailey family's godly fist style on the wrong path? Or, is it because we haven't fully comprehended the profound meaning of the godly fist style? We worked hard from generation to generation, and improved from generation to generation. We wanted to maintain the powerful lethality of the godly fist style, but at the same time, we wanted it to be gentler and more moderate. After I became an adult at the age of 18, I rarely stayed in Swallow Dock. Every year, I would go out to visit various fist masters and challenge the world's heroes. Hard work pays off. I collected the essence of fist styles in the world and integrated them into our family's hundredly godly fist. Now, you see, this is the result of my hard work. I call it reverse fist. Reverse fist? Go against the heavenly Tao, to achieve the great Tao? Bai Xiu folded the handkerchief neatly and put it back into his pocket. He walked towards Bai Lilu step by step and said, This time, I really have to congratulate you. You comprehended a new fist style and can be called a fist master. I admit, you are also a talent of Swallow Dock. You are qualified to be my opponent. I am qualified to be your opponent, Bai Lilu said with a face full of sarcasm. I don't think so. I don't think of you as my opponent, I want to be the killer who kills you. Fang Yen is a good friend of mine, and you killed his father. I have no responsibility to avenge his father. But, if I can make you stay here, he won't be able to raise his head in front of me for the rest of his life, right? This favor is not so easily repaid. Thinking about it, I'm a little excited. This kind of thing is based on the fact that you can make me stay here. The corner of Bai Xiu's mouth raised slightly. Even when he despised a person, he would not be so obvious. I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. Then eat my fist again. As Bailey Lu spoke, he once again clenched his fist and rushed towards Bai Xiu. Clang, clang, clang. The bluestone floor was once again crushed by him. The old nuns' faces were full of heartache. They had trampled the floor to such a state, and when the time came, they still had to find someone to repair it. Who could they find to repair it? Bai Xiu also moved. He no longer sat and waited for death like before, but took the initiative to meet Bailey Lu. After running quickly for a few steps, he successfully borrowed the momentum, and his body leaped high. Whoosh, his body spun in midair, and his right palm once again blazed with green light. Bai Xiu's body spun faster and faster, so fast that his shadow could not be seen clearly, and only the burning green flame could be seen clearly. Bai Xiu, Bailey Lu suddenly pushed out his fist and roared, "Go to hell!" Bai Xiu's body descended from the sky, and then he waved his palm, and a green beam of light struck towards the top of Bailey Lu's head. Thunder's sword covers the moon. Covering the sky and covering the moon, he wanted to split Bailey Lu in half with one strike. He had once used this move against Fang Yan, and although he failed in the end, this move had really caused great trouble for Fang Yan. I can't cut Fang Yan, but can I cut Bailey Lu? Bai Xiu thought in his heart. As the two of them fought fiercely, a young man in a white robe appeared beside the nuns with a smile on his face, and said, "Abbess, how about we make a bet? Who do you think will win?" Chapter 747. If a monk abstains from gambling, Buddha will blame him. The old nun Jinghui was watching the fight between Bai Xiu and Bai Lilu attentively. When she heard someone beside her asking her, she answered casually. Halfway through the question, she realized that something was wrong. The question was not asked by the nun beside her, but by a man's voice. The old nun Jinghui suddenly turned around and saw a familiar man blinking at her. He looked quite cute. "It's you." The old nun Jinghui was very familiar with this man. When Phoenix just came in, he ran over and made a scene to confess his love to her. He failed to conquer Phoenix's heart, but he conquered the hearts of these nuns. All the nuns, including her, supported Phoenix and Fang Yan to be together. Unexpectedly, after not seeing him for several months, he once again appeared in Lotus Flower Temple. "Donor Fang Yan, you came at the right time." The old nun Jinghui grabbed Fang Yan's arm and said, "Help Phoenix, she may be in danger. Don't worry, Phoenix will be fine." Fang Yan patted the back of the old nun Jinghui's hand and comforted her. "Bodhisattva will protect Phoenix's safety." But the old nun Jinghui always taught others to believe in Buddha and Bodhisattva, saying that Buddha and Bodhisattva would protect your family and make your wishes come true. But such words were just words. If they were really attacked by gangsters, it was better to ask for help from a master or call the police. Phoenix has been in the house for a long time, but she didn't come out even though there was so much noise outside. Maybe she fell asleep. Fang Yan said with a smile. How could she fall asleep? Even if she fell asleep? "None, I came to protect Phoenix." Fang Yan felt the old nun Jinghui's concern for Phoenix from the bottom of her heart. He said, "Don't worry. I won't let anything happen to Phoenix." Amitabha. The old nun Jinghui chanted the name of Buddha and didn't force Fang Yan to enter the house to check. When Fang Yan and the old nun Jinghui were talking, Bai Lilu and Bai Xiu had fought for hundreds of rounds. Bailey Lu's reverse punch was indeed unique. Every time they clashed head-on, he was able to gain the upper hand. Every time the fist and palm collided, Bailey Lu would only take 2 steps back, but Bai Xiu's entire body would be sent flying. And when Bai Xiu used the thunderclap sword technique to contend with Bailey Lu suffered greatly. His body was severely injured by the palm sword. The clothes on his body were shredded by the sword chi, and he looked to be in a sorry state. Clang! Bai Lilu sent Bai Xiu's body flying with another punch. This time he took 4 steps back. He frowned, very dissatisfied with the results of this battle. Moreover, Bai Xiu was indeed a genius. In a short period of time, he had already learned to dispel his defying force. Although he was still very inexperienced, he was working hard in the right direction. I must finish the battle as soon as possible, Bai Lilu thought to himself. Defeat him before he truly grasps the technique of dispersing force, or even kill him. Bai Xiu's body flew in the air. Just as he was about to hit the wall, his feet kicked back, and he flew forward again. Bai Xiu's body landed lightly. His eyes did not look at Bai Lilu, but at the lotus pond at the side. Fang Yan felt Bai Xiu's gaze and looked up. He waved at him and said, "Bai Xiu, I didn't think we would meet again. I thought you were already dead." The corner of Bai Xiu's mouth twitched. He sneered and said, "You thought I was dead, but you sent Bai Lilu here to wait for me? To be honest, the rabbit I sent Bai Lilu here to wait for is not you, but Jiang Junling. You also know that Jiang Junling's character is even worse than yours. He is the kind of scum who can do anything. If I didn't send Bai Lilu here to protect the phoenix, they might have thought of a way to capture the phoenix and use her to threaten me. I am a man who values relationships very much, so I will definitely fall for your evil scheme. You guys set up a sure kill trap at Solitary Sword Peak and failed to kill me, so you must be very dissatisfied with the phoenix, right?" As expected, Jiang Junling didn't come, but he sent one of his lackeys. "Bai Xiu, how does it feel to be a dog?" Bai Xiu tilted his head and thought for a moment. He said, "It's slightly better than being a dead dog." "That's true. Whether it's a dog or a dead dog, you have a lot of experience." Fang Yan looked at him with admiration. "But Bai Xiu, why is it you again? Why can't it be me? I couldn't kill you last time, so you can stay this time?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "Putting yourself in someone else's shoes is the heart of Buddha. You should also care about my face. If I let you escape again this time, where do you think my face will be?" "You," Bai Xiu said in a deep voice. Fang Yan quickly waved his hand and said, I can't stop you. You have to walk 100 miles. You two continue to fight, don't stop. I'll try not to delay you." Bai Lilu stared at Fang Yan with wide eyes and said angrily, "Do you have a conscience? I'm fighting to help you." I know. Fang Yan nodded with a smile and said, "So, that day when we were drinking in the old drunkard's courtyard, after you agreed to my request, I immediately offered you 3 big bowls of shaozi. Have you forgotten? Let's get started." Fang Yan waved his hand and looked at the nuns beside him who were watching the fight seriously and said, "The nuns are getting impatient." Bai Lilu looked at Bai Xiu and said, "Are you very angry in your heart?" Bai Xiu nodded frankly. "I'm also very angry in my heart," Bai Lilu said. "Then we can join forces to get rid of the person who made us angry." "In your dreams?" Bai Lilu said angrily. "Do you think I'm an idiot? You're notorious now. Everyone can't help but cover their nose when they mention your name. I won't join forces with you. If I do, my reputation will be ruined by you. You've seen it, I've learned the inverse punch. I'm preparing to become a boxing grandmaster and leave my name in history. A gentleman doesn't stand under a collapsing wall. I can fling my sleeves and leave now. I don't care if you guys fight to the death. But as I said, I've long wanted to try your thunderclap sword. So use your full strength. Don't make me regret this trip." Bai Xiu looked at Bai Lilu calmly. After pondering for a long time, he said, "All right." Clang! The dragon's roar rang out. Bai Xiu pulled out a flexible sword from his waist. The flexible sword trembled, and the tip of the sword emitted a silver-white light under the light. He didn't say a word and rushed toward Bai Lilu with the long sword in his hand. Bai Lilu let out a muffled roar. He clenched his fist and attacked Bai Xiu. Clang, 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 Bai Lilu once again displayed his destructive nature. He crushed countless bricks as he ran. The smile on Fang Yan's face gradually faded. He knew that the real battle was about to begin. Bai Lilu's inverse punch versus Bai Xiu's Thunder Phoenix sword. Who would be the final winner? One was light and the other was wild. One had an invincible fist and the other had a sharp, flexible sword. The collision between the two was a delightful thing to watch. Bai Lilu pushed out his glowing fist. Bai Xiu also stabbed out with the flexible sword in his hand. The tip of the sword created one sword flower after another. It was as if countless stars were lighting up around the fist. But Bai Lilu only threw that one punch, and he only had that one punch. The fist was like a rainbow. The power of the inverse punch contained in it was shocking. Boom! A muffled groan was heard. Sand and stones flew everywhere. The weeds on the ground were all broken. A strong airflow exploded. The nuns standing beside Fang Yan lost their balance and fell to the ground. Because Fang Yan used his body to block the attack of the airflow in time, the old nun Jing Hui was able to stand up straight. With her physical condition, if she were to fall down like the other nuns, she would probably lose an arm or a leg. Fang Yan turned to look at the old nun Jing Hui and asked, "Nun, are you okay?" "I'm fine." The old nun Jing Hui ran to help the other nuns. Fang Yan didn't stop her. He turned his eyes back to the battlefield. After this blow, Bai Lilu and Bai Xiu's bodies were both blown away. Bai Lilu's body flew very far away. After landing, he rolled all the way until he rolled to the side of the lotus pond. Bai Xiu's situation was better than Bai Lilu's. He used the flexible sword as a support. The tip of the long sword pierced into the wall. He used the long sword to support his body. The flexible sword in his hand was no longer soft. Because of the infusion of true qi, it was as hard as iron. Fang Yan walked to Bai Lilu's side. One of Bai Lilu's feet had fallen into the lotus pond. Fang Yan pulled Bai Lilu up and asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Bai Lilu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He stared at Bai Xiu with sharp eyes and said, "This boy has an amazing learning ability." Bai Lilu was aiming at something. This was the first time he fought with Bai Xiu. His reverse punch was a peerless fist technique that he had just comprehended, at least he thought so. Before this battle, only the core figures of the Bailey family and Fang Yan knew about it. Bai Xiu, who was still very inexperienced when dispersing the force, completely dispelled his force this time, as if he had done this countless times before. "That's why he can become Master's disciple, Bai Xiu," Fang Yan said with a smile. "Hateful people naturally have their own strong points." Fang Yan patted Bai Lilu's shoulder and said, "It's good that you're okay. Get up. Let's fight side by side." "Fight side by side?" Bai Lilu's expression froze. He said, "That's not good, is it? 2 against 1? He took the initiative to say he wanted to fight 1 against 2. Fang Yan said angrily, "That's an insult to us. No one can insult us except ourselves." "He said that?" Fang Yan nodded with certainty and said, "He said that. I'll attack first. You follow." Chapter 748. But Bailey Lu wanted to tell Fang Yan that it was not heroic for 2 people to fight against 1 person. He, the great hero Bailey, could not do such a thing. It was too shameful. He was a big shot who was going to become a boxing grandmaster. But he could not say it because it was not the first time he had done such a thing. He was a little annoyed. After being with Fang Yan for a long time, he could not help but have his moral bottom line dragged down to the horizon. As Fang Yan spoke, his body suddenly leaped high into the air. His body was like a cannonball, flying upside down towards Bai Xiu, who was hanging on the wall. His body rolled in the air, then he slapped Bai Xiu's head. Whoosh! The shadow of the palm was like countless cloud-expelling palms, trying to seal and cover Bai Xiu. In the battle with Bailey Lu, Bai Xiu was already injured. His chest was stabbed by Fang Yan. Although the Tao addict, Song Zaniang, used a precious ancient book to invite the medical addict, Qin Wujie, to save him. However, Qin Wujie was just a doctor, he was not a god. The sword mark was still there, and the injury that had affected his internal organs had not fully recovered. He was an injured person, dragging his injured body to fight with Bailey Lu. In the last blow, he used his vital energy, and until now, he was still vomiting blood. The blood he vomited was not only from his new injuries, but also from his old injuries. The current situation was old injuries adding on to new ones, and the situation was extremely dangerous. For people like them, they could feel the chirping of insects, and even the sound of flowers blooming. Naturally, he heard everything Fang Yan said. He wanted to cover the blood in his mouth and roar. When did I say that I would fight against two people alone? I'm already injured like this, and I still want to fight against two people alone. Do you think I'm an idiot? Am I insulting you, or are you insulting yourselves? Of course, Bai Xiu could not say such words out loud. Because if he yelled and said that he did not say that, wouldn't it show that he was afraid of Fang Yan and Bai Lilu? He was indeed afraid, but he could not say such things out loud. A man needs his face, a tree needs its bark, and a puppy also wants a flowery coat. Men were very prideful. Otherwise, how could they be called men? While Bai Xiu was struggling in pain, Fang Yan's body had already flown down from the highest point. Like a shining meteor, he illuminated everyone's eyes as he flew towards Bai Xiu with an incomparably graceful and beautiful posture. Before the palm arrived, the force had already been unleashed. Bai Xiu's chest was aching from the strong wind. He could already imagine how much damage Fang Yan's firmament-expelling palm would bring to his chest. With a single palm strike, his chest would probably be smashed and caved in, right? Bai Xiu kicked the wall with the tip of his foot, and his body flew backward. He pulled out the long sword in his hand from the wall. His body spun 360 degrees in the air, and the long sword in his hand danced in an airtight manner. Countless sword shadows crisscrossed, and countless specks of starlight lit up. The sword shadows and starlight shrouded the direction in which Fang Yan was rushing from, imprisoning his entire body. At the same time, Bai Lilu got up from the ground and ran towards Bai Xiu's position. Behind him, rocks flew everywhere, as if there was a huge explosion. When he was about to reach Bai Xiu's position, he stomped his feet and soared into the sky. Whoosh! His huge body turned into a cannonball, crashing towards Bai Xiu's figure in midair. Reverse punch. He punched out, and his entire arm blazed with green light. That green light was like a burning flame, spreading to his entire arm. Even the right side of his face was dyed with the green light. Bai Lilu's sleeves instantly turned into ashes, the fine powder drifting in the air. Fang Yan and Bai Lilu attacked the top and bottom respectively. The two attacked from both sides, wrapping Bai Xiu into a meat patty. Boom! Bai Lilu moved later, but arrived first. He punched at Bai Xiu's lower body. Whoosh! Fang Yan's palm struck out, and the surrounding air condensed, causing the entire space to distort. Crackle! This was the sound of the air burning, and a burnt smell permeated the air. Bai Xiu's robe fluttered, and his long hair, which was tied up by the black rope, flew in the wind. His eyes were piercingly cold, and his expression was solemn. He knew that this was the most dangerous moment of his life. It was even more dangerous than when he was lying on the ground a few months ago, and Fang Yan stabbed at him with his sword. The last time, he was stabbed by Fang Yan. He thought he was dead, but then he came back to life. However, the worst outcome would be death. If he couldn't deal with the joint attack of Fang Yan and Bai Lilu today, he might be smashed into meat paste or turned into meat paste. They wanted to dismember him. Bai Xiu had no time to think. All he could do was unleash the full power of the thunderclap sword. As he thought this, the sky full of sword shadows turned into a single sword, and the sky full of starlight suddenly extinguished and disappeared. All that was left was that sword, that plain and ordinary sword. Even the old nuns at the side felt a little down in their hearts when they saw the beautiful flowers turn into such a plain and ordinary scene. It was like a drama had just entered its climax, and everyone was waiting for it to explode, but the actors had already begun to wrap up. The thunderclap sword's thunderclap sword. This was a sword of life and death, and it was also a sword that Bai Xiu comprehended after his resurrection. He broke through his own shackles and became a true master of the sword. With this sword alone, he could be ranked as a Grandmaster. Like heavenly sword Lu Kanyang 100 years ago, he was a swordsman who understood the sword the best. Bai Xiu understood the sword. Swords were swords and people were swords. People could get angry and so could swords. People's personalities were different, so they would show different attitudes. Swords were the same. When you were happy, the sword you swung was happy. When you were sad, the sword you swung was sad. When your life is in danger, your sword will also feel threatened. If your heart started to feel fear, then your sword would be the first to feel fear, and you wouldn't even be able to control it. Fang Yen was as despicable as one. Bai Xiu was as one with the sword. As expected of the two most outstanding young geniuses of Swallow Fort. That ordinary-looking sword was no longer a sword, but Bai Xiu. It was very similar to Bai Xiu, silent, low-key, yet arrogant. The pride in its bones couldn't be hidden. That sword pierced through the qi, the cage, and the omnipresent space. That sword pierced straight into Fang Yan's chest, the place where his heart was. That was also the place where Fang Yan stabbed to kill him. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. Bai Xiu coldly shouted. Fang Yan, you owe me this. This was Bai Xiu's pride. This was also the sword's pride. Bai Xiu's sword pierced straight at Fang Yan, and he only had his eyes on Fang Yan. He knew better than anyone else that it was impossible for him to kill Fang Yan and Bai Lilu, who were experts who were not weaker than him, with a single stab, unless the two of them stood side by side and let him skewer them like skewers. He ignored Bai Lilu, which didn't get Bai Lilu's gratitude, but made him hate Bai Xiu even more. Am I so much worse than Fang Yan? As he was thinking about this, Bai Lilu exerted all of his strength. One sword, one punch, one palm. 3 different ways of attack, 3 different kinds of qi flow. They hadn't collided yet, but the sword, fist, and palm wrapped in vital qi had already started fighting fiercely. The starlight in the sky rose again, then disappeared. Everything returned to peace. Bai Lilu's body was thrown out, and he fell into the lotus pond with a plop. Bai Lilu's body lay straight on the lotus pond, as if he was dead. 2 middle-aged nuns ran over to take a look, and hurriedly went into the water to salvage Bai Lilu. Although they were extremely afraid, monks were compassionate. If the person was not dead, and they didn't care, Buddha would blame them, and there would be trouble at the police station. I'm not dead. Bai Lilu suddenly opened his eyes, glanced at the 2 nuns, and said aloud. The 2 nuns were so scared that they kept retreating, and one fell into the pond. It seemed that the Bai Lilu who was not dead was more terrifying than the dead Bai Lilu. But I'm seriously injured, Bai Lilu said. Very seriously. Maybe I'll really die. The 2 nuns looked at each other and walked over together. Each of them grabbed one of Bai Lilu's arms, trying to drag him out of the water first. Fang Yan retreated to the group of nuns. There was a wound on his chest, a wound that touched his flesh. The opened flesh was oozing blood, gurgling out, and it flowed rapidly. Bai Xiu disappeared. The other nuns were panic-stricken. Only the old nun Jing Hui and another older nun ran to Fang Yan with a worried face and said, Benefactor Fang Yan, are you okay? Oh, you're seriously injured. Thank you, nun. This, I know very well. Fang Yan smiled and thanked her. After all, Bai Xiu's sword had cut his body. No one knew better than him how serious the injury was. Should we call the police? Thank you, nun, I'm fine. Fang Yan was still able to maintain a kind smile to the old nun, and said, There's no need to call the police. When the police arrive, the bad guy will be dead, and they can only take the good guy away. Only the thieves of Swallow Dock can do such a shameless thing. An old voice came from the sky. Everyone looked up and saw a man in a black robe appear on the roof. Bai Xiu, who had disappeared, was held in his arms. Bai Xiu had fainted, and his face and body were covered with blood. Chapter 749. The man on the roof was completely shrouded in a black robe and a black hat on his head, covering half of his face. Obviously, he didn't like to show his true face in front of others. One of his hands was pressed against Bai Xiu's chest, and a cloud of white mist rose. It seemed that he was using his true power to guide the stagnant and broken airflow in Bai Xiu's body, guiding it into Bai Xiu's sea of qi in order to maintain his vitality. Bai Lilu was trying hard to climb out of the lotus pond. When he heard the black-robed man's accusation, his face turned red, and then he retorted angrily, saying, Bai Xiu was the one who challenged us. Who can you blame? The black-robed man didn't care about Bai Lilu at all. He didn't care about people like Bai Lilu. His eyes were fixed on Fang Yan, who was treating the wound, and his voice carried a hint of sarcasm. Fang Yan, we meet again. Song Xianxia, you old man. Fang Yan gritted his teeth and scolded. While scolding, his hands didn't stay idle. He took out a bottle of red potion from his pocket, which was a good thing that only the Xian department could get. He quickly poured the potion on the open flesh, and the blood that oozed out immediately froze. He then took out a larger bottle and sprayed it on the wound. The mist-like substance covered the open flesh. Other than the bone-chilling cold, even the pain of the flesh tearing had disappeared. The newcomer was the Tao addict, Song Xianxia. Fang Yan remembered his voice. Even if he were to cremate himself, Fang Yan would know that the pile of ashes belonged to him. If he did not believe it, Fang Yan would let him try if he agreed. Just now, when Fang Yan and Bai Lilu attacked Bai Xiu, they wanted to completely eradicate Bai Xiu in one blow. As long as Bai Xiu was not dead, revenge would not stop. Only when Bai Xiu was completely dead could Fang Yan really give up on this enemy. Otherwise, he would still find ways to get rid of him. Bai Xiu was a thoroughly bad person. Moreover, he was a bad person with extraordinary skills and intelligence. Hooligans weren't scary. What was scary was a cultured hooligan. In Fang Yan's eyes, Bai Xiu was a cultured hooligan. He killed his own father, and for a long time, no one even knew that he was the murderer. He was as calm as usual, living his life in Swallow Dock as usual. Reading books, practicing swordsmanship, and nodding to everyone he met, but he did not get close to them or stay away from them. From this, it could be seen how firm and cold his temperament was. Now, his target was the phoenix. If Fang Yan hadn't asked Bai Lilu to come and help guard in advance, he would have succeeded this time. The phoenix had fallen into Bai Xiu's hands. If they used the phoenix to force him to do something that went against Fang Yan's conscience or his own heart, how should he deal with it? Bai Xiu must die, and the Tao addict must be punished. Just when Fang Yan and Bai Lilu were ready to join hands to kill Bai Xiu, in case something unexpected happened, Tao addict Song transplanting rice appeared again. He suddenly took action and pulled Bai Xiu out of the encirclement at the critical moment. Tao addict Song transplanting rice blocked the real killing moves of Fang Yan and Bai Lilu, so Bai Xiu had to bear less. Ah, Fang Yan, in this world, only you dare to scold me like this. Don't flatter yourself. Fang Yan sneered and said, there are many people who scold you, but you don't know it. Not only do I dare to scold you, but I also dare to kill you. Fang Yan, you are so naive. Tao addict was not angry with Fang Yan's words. She said, do you think you and the good-for-nothing who climbed out of the pool can kill me? Isn't that enough? Fang Yan asked with a smile. Of course not. Song transplanting rice said rudely. If it weren't for the two old guys who desperately protected you at Sword Peak, I would have killed you with my palm. How could you have the chance to talk nonsense now? Fang Yan laughed and said, it's so childish to say that. Before they came, I took so many slaps from you, but I didn't see you kill me. Later, my two masters came. You couldn't beat them, so you put the blame on them. You wanted to protect Bai Xiu, but I stabbed you with my sword. But that bastard is so tough that I didn't kill him with my sword. I won't make such a mistake again. Speaking of this, Song transplanting rice's anger rose again. Fang Yan tricked them and stabbed his sword into Bai Xiu's chest. At that time, they really thought that Bai Xiu was dead. After the two old guys took the unconscious Fang Yan and the seriously injured phoenix away, they also left Sword Mountain with Bai Xiu's corpse. Song transplanting rice touched Bai Xiu's body and felt that his heart was still beating weakly. Song transplanting rice immediately used the genuine qi in his body to protect his heart, and then asked someone to exchange the Tao ancestors' handwritten cure illness technique for the treatment of Qin Wujie, the medical addict. In order to exchange for Bai Xiu, he had lost one of his favorite treasures. It was the only one in the world. The medical addict had coveted it for a long time and finally had to give it to him as a consultation fee. Until now, he still felt his heart bleeding. If it weren't for Fang Yan, the cure illness technique would still be in his personal treasure house. Fang Yan, do you know? You will never be a match for Bai Xiu. You will always be defeated by him. Song transplanting rice knew how to provoke Fang Yen and how to make him suffer. He killed your father, but you can only look for the murderer like a fool. You can't kill him, but he wants to kill you. Fang Yen pointed to Bai Xiu in Song transplanting rice's arms and said, he can't kill anyone like this, right? Why do you think I came? Song transplanting rice laughed sinisterly. What do you think I'm doing here? Could it be that this is a trap? Fang Yen exclaimed. Bai Xiu knows that you are a playboy. Although there are many excellent women around you, you can't let go of Phoenix. Song transplanting rice explained with a smile. He was willing to do such a thing. It was refreshing to kill the prey with one strike, but it was even more interesting to watch the prey struggle in remorse. So, he came to find Phoenix. His purpose was to lure you out. The original plan was to take Phoenix away and force you to the place we agreed on. I was a little worried, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect to meet you here. Well, if you don't care about the feng shui, I'll finish you here. It'll save me the trouble of walking through the high mountains. So, your target is me. Fang Yen said with a sigh. What do you think? Bai Xiu was indeed infatuated, but he was also a smart man. He knew how to choose between a woman and life and death. He was dead in the past, and now he was a heartless Bai Xiu. Would a heartless Bai Xiu still care about a woman's feelings? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I'm sure you're familiar with the saying, I know your family has a long history of learning, right? I see. Fang Yen said with a smile. Bai Xiu kidnapped Phoenix to lure me to the place where you were lying in ambush. In the end, Bai Xiu's kidnapping didn't work because I had already arranged for people to ambush him here. When we were about to kill Bai Xiu, you ran out and ruined our plans. You even threatened to kill me. Do you think that I don't have a backup plan just because you have a backup plan? Huh. Song transplanting rice said sarcastically, if the monk and the Daoist don't come to save you, I'd like to see who can stop me this time. You have a plan to kill me, but I have Yi Wen-ro. Fang Yen said with a smile. He shouted to the house, Ro Ro, come out. Come and see how disgusting and ugly the world-famous Tao addict Song transplanting rice is. The wooden door of the hut where Phoenix lived opened, and Yi Wen-ro, dressed in black, stood at the door. She held a woman in her arms. It was Phoenix, who had been knocked out by Bai Xiu and put on the futon in the room. Yi Wen-ro walked towards Fang Yen with Phoenix in her arms, and then handed Phoenix over to the nuns around Fang Yen. Old Nun Jing Hui was anxious. She grabbed Phoenix's arm and shouted, Phoenix, 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 how are you? Although Phoenix did not enter Buddhism, she had a very good relationship with these nuns. They all treated her as their own niece. She will be fine. Yi Wen-ro explained softly, she was just knocked out. She will wake up after a sleep. Yi Wen-ro glanced at Fang Yen and said, I think it's up to you to decide whether to wake her up or not. Fang Yen nodded and sighed softly. Yi Wen-ro's approach was right, and it was entirely for his own sake. If Phoenix woke up and faced such a situation again, how would she feel? Even he did not know what kind of mood he should use to face Phoenix. Besides, what if Yi Wen-ro is jealous? Song transplanting seedlings had obviously heard of Yi Wen-ro. When he saw Yi Wen coming out of the room, he couldn't help laughing. His voice was like a goshawk or an old dog. He said in a deep voice, Fang Yen, is this the move you prepared for me? Are you going to let your woman intercept me and kill you? I'm afraid you want to drag her to death with you. Tao addict is famous, and her cultivation is unfathomable. She is no longer limited to the 7 addicts. Even Ho Zhendong, the martial addict, is no match for you. So, we are going to attack you together. Do you dare to take it? What's there to be afraid of? Tao addict Song transplanting seedlings said heroically, even if there are 100 of Yi Wen-ro, let alone one. Do you really think a woman who failed to conquer the way of heaven can help you kill me? I would like to ask with concern, how much of her internal strength has she recovered from the backlash of the power of the way of heaven? How much of her internal injury has she recovered? You even know this? Fang Yen asked with his eyes wide open. The world is so big. What can be hidden from my eyes? Chapter 750. Above the mountain peak, in the dense forest. From this angle, one could see the Lotus Temple at the foot of the mountain. The lonely mountain temple was just a small and dilapidated courtyard through the binoculars. A man in a black suit looked around with a pair of binoculars, with a contemptuous and arrogant smile on his face. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. The most ridiculous thing about this sentence is that everyone thinks they are the oriole. But who is the mantis? Who is the cicada? The man said in a clear voice. If there were no mantis and cicada, how could the oriole behind covet? Young master, they are all mantis, only you are the oriole hidden in the back. A tall man said with a flattering face. The man turned around with the binoculars, and the big man's pig head suddenly pulled in front of him. He said with a smile, before the overall situation is settled, this kind of words don't count. In the battle of One Sword Peak, we have already determined that we are the oriole, but what happened? Didn't we still fail? Failed miserably? Now, the name Jiang Junling has become the biggest joke in Yanjing. What's there to be proud of? That was just an exception. The big man still said with some reluctance. Who knew so many things would happen later? Who knew that the old monk and the old Daoist would stand up to help him? If it weren't for those monks, we would have killed Fang Yen long ago. As the big man spoke, his face became pale, and he hurriedly explained, I don't have a problem with the monks. I respect the Tao addict very much. The man in the suit smiled and shook his head. He threw the binoculars in his hand to the bodyguard next to him and said, how many people in this world can be free from the world of mortals? Monks are human beings, Taoist priests are also human beings. People have desires, and when their desires can't be satisfied, they can do anything. Although the big man didn't understand what the young master was saying, since he said so, it must be very reasonable. The man in the suit looked at a waterfall between the mountain streams on the left and said, the water is too small. It would be good if the water was larger. Everyone was shocked. A long-haired old man asked in a deep voice, young master, do you mean to flood the Lotus Temple? How could he do such a thing? The man shook his head with a smile and said, Master is down there. How could I put him in danger? Besides, with Master's help, Fang Yan's head will definitely fall to the ground. I hate Fang Yan, but Master hates Fang Yan even more. I'm sure he won't show any mercy. Eldest young master is right. The long-haired old man nodded and said, Mr. Tao Addict's kung fu is profound. I'm afraid his cultivation is no less than that of the 3 dragons. Some busybodies have listed him as one of the 7 addicts. That's not to show respect for him, but to limit the growth of his reputation. It was said that Fang Yan, who possessed the heart of Supreme Ultimate, was a rare genius of the Dao sect. If Fang Yan was compared with the Tao addict of the same period, he was just a clown. Unfortunately, the people of Taoism are jealous and narrow-minded. They are unwilling to let Mr. Tao addict inherit the throne and control the Tai Chi diagram. Otherwise, Mr. Tao addict would have been the master of Taoism long ago. Master is indeed a genius. There's no doubt about that. But Fang Yan does have some skills. Only by admitting the strength of the opponent can he really knock him down. Everyone nodded and deeply agreed. The man in the suit looked at the waterfall not far away. There were red flames burning in his eyes. The water is still a little small. He thought in his heart. Fang Yan didn't like arrogant people. He thought he was the best man in the world. But there was someone who came to him to brag. It proved that the other party was blind and didn't know his place. The world is so big. What can be hidden from my eyes? Fang Yan was very unhappy after hearing this. The world is so big. What can be hidden from your eyes? Ruan Qian flirted with a girl in Yanjing. Do you know how big that woman's chest is? Zhu Ziden peed into the North Sea. Do you know how long his dick is? Forget it. I won't use Qin Etian as an example. Fang Yan felt that these monks and Taoists liked to brag the most. They talked all day long as if he and Guanyin Bodhisattva and Buddha were good brothers. Come on, they don't even know who you are, okay? Fang Yen felt that he and the heavenly primogenitor were good brothers. Otherwise, how could he be so talented when he was born? Fang Yen looked at Tao addict Song Transplanting coldly and said, "Since you agree, then let's get started. When Rowan and I are both younger than you, the food we eat is not even as much as the salt you eat. So outsiders can't say that we bully you." Song Transplanting was stunned for a long time. He didn't feel that this guy was praising him. Fang Yen looked at Yiwen Rowan and said, "What do you want to say?" Yiwen Rowan looked at Fang Yen doubtfully and asked, "What do I need to say?" Before a fight, you always have to say a few harsh words. For example, "I want to poke your eyes blind, I want to crush your balls, I want to tear your body into pieces." Yiwen Rowan thought for a moment and said awkwardly, "Kill him." Fang Yen was a little angry. He felt that Yiwen Rowan's harsh words were not harsh at all. "Ignorant boy." Tao addict Song Transplanting put Bai Xiu's body against the ridge of the roof. Without any movement, his body had already floated down and stood in front of Fang Yen. "If you want to fight, then fight. Don't waste our time." Fang Yen nodded and looked at Yiwen Rowan. "You attack, I'll sneak attack." Song Transplanting thought that if this guy was his boyfriend, he would definitely crush him. Bah, he was not his boyfriend. Unexpectedly, Yiwen Rowan nodded and said, "You don't have to fight. You don't have to fight." Tao addict Song Transplanting was angry again. "You don't have to fight? What do you mean? Do you think you can take me down by yourself? Arrogant bitch." Tao addict roared. She leaped up and hit Yiwen Rowan's head with her palm. Yiwen disappeared on the spot. Tao addict Song Transplanting's eyes were wide open, but he knew very well that he did not open his eyes at all. However, he had lost the target in front of him. He was shocked. When he was about to turn around and change his move, a cold wind appeared behind him. Bang! He was hit on the back and his body staggered toward the stone wall of the house. Fortunately, the walls of the houses in Lotus Flower Temple were made of big stones. Otherwise, they would have been broken by Tao addict Song Transplanting and Bai Xiu. Puff! The Tao addict, Song Zaniang, spat out a mouthful of blood from the corner of his mouth. He looked at Yiwen, who was standing in the same place as if she had never moved, with a ferocious expression. He asked in a hoarse voice, "What's going on? Natural Tao realm?" Yiwen looked at him calmly and said, "Natural Tao state." "You have entered the natural Tao state?" Tao addict Song Transplanting's mind was racing, imagining all the processes that had developed to the present. Yiwen had entered the natural Tao state. He did not fail but deliberately concealed it. What was their purpose? He wanted to use Phoenix as a chess piece to lure Fang Yen out to snipe him, but accidentally encountered a natural Tao state expert here. I understand. Tao addict Song Transplanting's mouth was dripping with blood, and he said in a cold voice, "You deliberately concealed the news so that I would not be wary of you. I thought that even if you joined forces, you would not be my match. Then you came here." Yiwen's performance was too calm, which made Fang Yen very dissatisfied. "Come on, you are a natural Tao state expert. After keeping it a secret for so long, now you finally have the opportunity to announce this shocking news. How can you not be not happy at all?" Fang Yen was very happy. He looked at Song Transplanting with a smile and said, "Didn't you just say that nothing can be hidden from your eyes in this big world? I thought you already knew about this matter? You were so surprised just now. So there are things in this world that you don't know?" Puff! Tao addict Song Transplanting spat out blood again. He did not know whether it was caused by Yiwen's palm injury or because Fang Yen used his own words to counterattack. "Don't be angry, it's not worth it." Fang Yen comforted him. "You are about to die anyway." She clearly failed. Why did she succeed? Song Transplanting asked. Everyone knows she failed. Even the Yi family said so. "It was a failure," Fang Yen said with a chuckle. "But then she succeeded again. Behind every successful woman, there is a man who is willing to sacrifice for her selflessly." Yiwen was deeply in love with Fang Yen. So when she tried to climb to the natural Tao state, the test Heavenly Tao gave her was to sever her emotions. Yi Wen couldn't do it. She couldn't let go of her feelings for Fang Yan, so she suffered a backlash from Heavenly Dao. Her body was surging. The energy that she had mobilized to break through the door of Heavenly Dao had nowhere to vent. Finally, it ran wild in her body, but it couldn't find a way out. Yi Wen was unconscious. Her body temperature was rising. Her sea of energy formed a volcano. The volcano was getting hotter and hotter, and it was about to explode. At the critical moment, Fang Yan rushed in. He didn't know how to vent his anger, so he could only use the power of Tai Chi to move the volcano into his body. Fang Yan almost died. Until now, his heart of Tai Chi was still motionless, forming a dead fetus. In order to survive, Yi Wen was freed from the shackles of Heavenly Dao and became a Heavenly Dao state expert. Chapter 751. What the Yi family didn't know was that Yi Ro had already woken up before they broke into the stone room. She saw Fang Yan lying beside her in a dangerous situation and immediately understood what had happened. She used her cultivation level as a Heavenly Dao realm expert to inject vital energy into Fang Yan, but eventually, she fainted once again due to overexertion. Yi Daoling found that Yi Ro and Fang Yan were naked and hugging each other. It was also because Yi Ro lost her strength after treating Fang Yan that she fell on him. Yi Ro's clothes were burnt because her body temperature was too high, and Fang Yan's clothes were burnt because he forcibly moved the volcano of the Tao of Heaven into his body. When Fang Yan woke up, he didn't know Yi Ro's current physical condition. He thought she had failed to climb the Heavenly Dao and even comforted her, hoping that she wouldn't mind. After all, she was still young. She could try it every year. It didn't cost her anything anyway. However, when they were alone in the room, Yi Ro told him the truth in a low voice. The two of them had a tacit understanding and remained silent on this matter. Fang Yan stayed in the Yi family's courtyard for a long time with the excuse that Yi Ro failed to climb the heavenly axiom and needed to recuperate. Because their acting was too realistic, even a wise person like Yi Daoling was fooled by them. Perhaps Yi Daoling subconsciously didn't think that Yi Gentle had a high chance of success in climbing the Heavenly Dao. He also didn't think that someone would succeed on the first try, and at Yi Gentle's age, Yi Ro's success in climbing the heavenly axiom was already a miracle. This was a world where looks mattered the most. Because Yi Ro was beautiful, even the heavens favored her a little more. Otherwise, why would those who were older than her, who worked harder than her, and who were willing to give up everything, find it difficult to conquer the great Tao? I don't understand. Song Zaniang used the Daoist mind-clearing mantra to suppress his surging qi and blood and said, "Why did the Yi family hide the fact that Yi Ro conquered the way of the heavens for you? The Yi family benefited the most from Yi Ro conquering the way of the heavens. They want the whole world to know." You sure have a lot of questions. Fang Yan sneered. It's not that the Yi clan wants to hide it for us, it's that we want to hide it from the Yi clan. Song transplanting doubts were not without reason. Yi Wen had succeeded in conquering the heavenly axiom, and the Yi family had benefited the most. The Yi family had a martial artist in the Tao of Heaven, and his potential influence was great. No one wished to be enemies with such a family clan. Even a country would sometimes need Heavenly Tao realm experts to resolve extremely troublesome problems. For example, Fang Yan and Gong Sun had stormed the Millennium Palace to steal the red-robed archbishop's staff. With that staff, the nation could work with the Thousand-Year Palace or trade with Jerusalem, the enemy of the Thousand-Year Palace. It all depended on which side could best satisfy the nation's interests. Such a matter was not something that could be solved by the special forces or pure soldiers. Such a group of people was needed. This was also the reason why Swallow Dock was able to communicate and cooperate directly with the big shots in the military. However, neither Fang Yan nor Yi Ro wanted the Yi family to know that Yi Ro had conquered the heavenly axiom. If they knew that Yi Ro was already a Heavenly Tao realm expert, they would probably forbid Fang Yan and Yi Ro from interacting. Heavenly Tao realm experts were the guardians of a family clan, so they naturally had to pay more attention and restrict them. The couple was naturally excited that Yi Ro had become a Heavenly Tao realm expert. Yi Ro had replaced Mo Qingdi as Swallow Dock's youngest Heavenly Tao realm expert. She had ushered in a new era, and she would become the new brand of Swallow Dock. 20 years ago, Swallow Dock's brand was Azure Dragon Mo Qingdi. The reason for Fang Yan's excitement was that his girlfriend had become Swallow Dock's youngest Heavenly Dao Realm expert. And the previous youngest Heavenly Dao Realm expert of Swallow Dock was old drunkard Mo Qingdi. Although he wasn't a Heavenly Dao Realm expert himself, Heavenly Dao Realm experts were his family and girlfriend. This kind of thing would also make people feel proud if they said it out loud. Gigolo? Please, you have to be fair first before you have the right to be a gigolo. Not every man had the right to rely on women for a living. Most importantly, be it old drunkard from 20 years ago or Yi Ro 20 years later, the two of them becoming Heavenly Dao Realm experts had a close relationship with him. There was no need to mention Yi Ro. If not for Fang Yan risking his life to save her, sacrificing his heart of Taiji to help Yi Ro move the mountain, ignoring the possibility of Yi Ro ascending to the Heavenly Dao, it was unknown if she could even keep her life. Therefore, Fang Yan was the man who supported Yi Ro's success. In the future, he might even become the man who supported her. Old drunkard Mo Qingdi was able to become a Heavenly Dao Realm expert because of Fang Yan's grandfather, Fang Hui. If not for Fang Yan's grandfather taking Mo Qingdi in as a disciple and imparting all he knew to him, how could old drunkard obtain the great Dao through self-enlightenment, no matter how talented he was? Despicable, to even lie to his own family. Song transplanting cursed. These two young people were too shameless. They had achieved such great results, but they didn't tell their own family so that everyone could be happy with them. Even the Yi family really thought that Yi Ro had failed to ascend to the Heavenly Dao. They never mentioned anything about Yi Ro outside, and even if someone asked, they didn't seem willing to say much, and it was because of this that Song Transplanting and company were assured, thinking that Fang Yan and Yi Ro were weak and easy to bully. Unexpectedly, the development of the plot was too sudden, and he had kicked an iron plate. Yi Ro had secretly and shamelessly become a Heavenly Dao Realm expert. Fang Yan laughed heartily and said, Song Zaniong, I have no enmity with you. Last time at the summit of One Sword Peak, you bullied me because I was young and weak and tried to kill me. Do you think you can escape this time? Song Transplanting had been through a lot, and after the initial shock, he had calmed down a lot. He stared at Fang Yan with a gloomy face and hissed, The only thing I regret is that I listened to the slanderous words of the martial arts fanatic and didn't kill you with one strike. Don't flatter yourself. You didn't kill me last time because you couldn't kill me. Fang Yan said with a face full of disdain. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Now you know who the oriole is? I'm much more vulgar than you. I'm the real oriole. Yi Ro turned to look at Fang Yan and asked, Are you done? Fang Yan looked at her with a puzzled expression and asked, What do you want to say? It doesn't matter, I've said almost everything. If you want to say something, just say it. If you don't say it now, you won't have a chance to say it in the future. If you're done. Yi Ro looked impatient and said, I'll start killing people. When Tao Transplanting heard Yi Ro say, I'll start killing people, he was very angry, and then it turned into hatred. He thought, although you have conquered the Heavenly Dao and become a fearsome Heavenly Dao realm expert, I have been famous for many years, and my cultivation of inner strength is much deeper than yours. If you really fight with your life, you may not be my opponent. Besides, young people cherish their lives. How could a little girl like Yi Ro, who was in love and unable to extricate herself, be willing to fight to the death? She wouldn't even be willing to make a cut on her face. Thinking of this, Song Transplanting became more and more arrogant and confident. He sneered and said, Yi Ro, I have no grudge with your Yi family. My goal is only Fang Yan. This time, you forced your way in. You are Tao addict? Yi Ro interrupted Tao Transplanting and asked in a cold voice. Yes, Song Transplanting said loudly. You are a boring person. You want to kill Fang Yan? Yi Ro didn't want to give Song Transplanting a chance to speak at all. Her questions were more urgent and sharp. Exactly. This guy. I'm going to kill you. After saying these words, Yi Ro's body disappeared from where she stood. There was a wind blowing, a slight turbulence in the air, and there seemed to be a blurry figure in front of him. You just realized that your target had disappeared, and then she appeared in front of you, her palm about to hit the important part of your chest. It was this feeling of powerlessness, this kind of bitterness that people couldn't capture. Song Transplanting had just suffered from this move, so he was always on guard. When he discovered that Yi Ro had disappeared, he already knew what was going to happen. However, thinking about it was one thing, and whether or not his body could fight back was another matter. Song Transplanting had just finished gathering his strength and punched at Yi Ro's chest, ready to fight back with a powerful thunderbolt. He wanted to let Yi Ro know the true strength of Tao Transplanting Song. However, just as his fist reached out, his body was lifted off the ground and sent flying. Difference. This was the difference between a non-heaven Dao expert and a heavenly Dao expert. Yi Ro's speed had exceeded the speed that the human eye could perceive. It took some time for the human eye to see an object and for it to be transmitted to the brain. Yi Ro used this time to attack. In other words, unless Song Transplanting Song could also see with his eyes, his body must be able to respond immediately, and he must not think and respond in the brain. However, if the brain did not have time to think, how could the human hands and feet respond? Plop. Tao Transplanting Song's body hit the stone wall again, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Before he could take a deep breath, Yi Ro's body appeared in front of him again. Whoosh, she punched out. Clang. The stone wall could no longer support itself and collapsed with a rumble. Chapter 752. Clatter. The wood and gray tiles on the roof fell and buried the whole house. The stone wall collapsed, and the body of Tao addict Song Xianxia also fell into the room and was buried by bricks and tiles. Bai Xiu also disappeared with Tao addict Song Xianxia. When Tao addict Song Xianxia wanted to come down and kill Fang Yan and Yi Ro by himself, he first put Bai Xiu, who was unconscious, on the roof ridge. Now the wall had fallen, the house had collapsed, and Bai Xiu's body was buried by bricks and stones. He fell in a coma, and now he was hit by these stones for a while. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Dust and smoke were rolling, and stones were flying. Yi Ro did not approach. She stood outside the brick wall, waiting for Song Xianxia to come out of the ruins. Amit Ba. Old Nun Jing Hui chanted. My God, these people knocked down the stone wall with their fists. It seems that there are gods and Buddhas in this world, because only gods and Buddhas can have such great power. Thinking of this, old Nun Jing Hui decided to eat vegetarian and chant Buddhist scriptures more devoutly in the future. The sound was like thunder, and Phoenix, who was lying in the arms of a middle-aged nun, suddenly woke up. Her beautiful eyes sized up everything around her, making her feel full of doubts. Where is this? What happened? Senior Sister Qing Exen? Phoenix called the middle-aged nun's name. Phoenix, you're awake? Qing Xian's face was full of joy. Are you okay? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I'm fine. Phoenix thought carefully. Before she fainted, she was talking to Bai Xiu. Bai Xiu did not die, and Bai Xiu wanted to take her away, but she did not want to go with him, and urged him to leave quickly. What happened later? Phoenix tried very hard to remember, but she could not remember anything else. Instead, she felt a burst of pain in the back of her neck, as if she had been whipped by a heavy object. I'm glad you're fine, Qing Xian said happily. Those people, Phoenix looked up and happened to meet Fang Yan's eyes. Phoenix opened her mouth slightly, wanting to say something. But when the words reached his mouth, he didn't know what to say. Fang Yan blinked and said with a smile, You're awake? Phoenix nodded. Fang Yan's natural carefreeness infected Phoenix. She thought that since he could do it so casually, there was no need for her to feel embarrassed. Besides, he was already a monk, or at least a quasi-monk. Just as he was about to sever all ties with the mortal world and attain peace and tranquility. All that love and affection were just fleeting clouds to him. What else could he not let go of? Thinking of this, Phoenix immediately felt much more relaxed. She wanted to get up from Nun Qing Xian's bosom, but her head was still aching. Obviously, his sleep just now was not a good one. Seeing that Phoenix was about to get up, Nun Qing Exen hurriedly helped her up. Phoenix looked at her collapsed house and asked with widened eyes, "What happened?" Fang Yan smiled embarrassedly. He pointed at Yi Ro, who was facing them with her back, and said, "He was knocked down by her." Knocked down? Phoenix saw Yi Ro. She came with Fang Yan and appeared in the temple where she lived in seclusion. It must have something to do with Bai Xiu, right? "I'm sorry," Fang Yan said with embarrassment. "Ro didn't mean to be gentle. It's mainly because that old guy song transplanting seedlings was too big and knocked down your house." Fang Yan said sorry for Yi Ro. Phoenix felt her heart was blocked by something. Yi Ro was his woman. Who is she? The vague decision in her heart, the heart that was moved by Nun Jinghui, was once again extinguished. "It's okay," Phoenix said in a hoarse voice. "Anyway, it's not a big deal." Was she talking about the house or herself? She probably couldn't even tell the difference between herself and the house. "I'm just a poor person after all," Phoenix thought in her heart. Lotus Temple had become a place of trouble, and she refused to return to the Yin family. Then where would she go in the future? "But you don't have to worry," Fang Yan comforted her. "When the time comes, we can help Nun Jinghui rebuild Lotus Temple. This place needs to be repaired." Phoenix's heart sank again. What did Fang Yan mean by this? Did he want to repair Lotus Temple and let her live a good life here alone? Although she did tell him so before, why did he want to repair a temple for her? Did he want her to be a nun for the rest of her life? "You don't have to worry about it," Phoenix said somewhat angrily. "Someone from the Yin family came and they left a sum of money for Lotus Temple. I will use that money to hire someone to repair the temple. That's fine." Fang Yan nodded and said, "But now is not the time to talk about this." Before Fang Yan's voice died away, there was a cracking sound. Then, Tao transplanting seedlings, dressed in a black robe, rushed out of the pile of bricks and tiles. A huge black shadow covered the sky and charged toward the ground like a rock spreading its wings. His expression was cold, and his eyes were murderous. This was not like the eyes of a monk at all. It was more like a butcher, a desperado. There were cuts on his face from the bricks, and bright red blood was oozing out of those cuts. His black robe fluttered like a big black balloon, and the hem of his clothes fluttered in the wind. His hands pressed flat, and a powerful white cyclone flowed between his palms. His hands seemed to be holding two transparent cauldrons, covering the ground. Crunch, crunch, with the pressure of his palms, the air was pushed away, and the space made a tearing and twisting sound. Hiss! The airflow gathered more and more, and the cyclone became bigger and bigger. The two transparent cauldrons also turned into a huge stone mill. 100 seals of turtle breath. The unique skills of Taoism have rarely appeared in the world for thousands of years. It is said that this martial art has been lost for a long time, and the secret manual was destroyed during the Eight Kings Rebellion. Who would have thought that the old man song transplanting seedlings would actually learn this martial art? Fang Yan was envious. He had long heard that Tao transplanting seedlings, the Tao addict, had a very high status in Taoism. If he hadn't made a big mistake, the position of Master of Taoism would have fallen into his hands. If he had become the Master of Taoism, all the sects in the world would be under his control. At that time, he would have countless Taoist treasures and rare skills in his hands. Be it Buddhists or Daoists, these two sects were the richest organizations in the world. Even if song transplanting seedlings did not become the master of Taoism, he must have stolen a lot of things when he left Taoism. These things greatly improved his strength, surpassed the boundaries of the seven addicts, and advanced towards the heavenly Tao realm. Even Ho Zhendong, the martial addict of the seven addicts, was ordered to kill because of his kindness. And when Bai Xiu was injured to that extent, he also used his treasures to exchange for the medical addict Qin Wujia's help. From this, it could be seen how rich this person was. Yi Ro felt a strong sense of threat. Her scalp went numb, and her long hair began to dance in the air. Because the pressure was too great, it caused her hair to want to leave her scalp and fly far away to escape. Her head was in pain from being pulled by those hairs. It was as if her entire body had been immobilized. She couldn't move or walk even if she wanted to. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the dust under their feet was blown away, the weeds were so heavy that they couldn't even lift their heads, and even some small stones were blown far away by the airflow. Yi Rou's expression was calm as usual. Such a counterattack was within reason. Tao addict Song transplanting seedlings was one of the 7 addicts of Wuxia. Although he was extremely low-key and rarely appeared in front of others, it was said that his strength was unfathomable. However, it was said that his strength was unfathomable, and he was the strongest among the 7 lunatics of China. He was on par with the 3 dragons, and some even said that he had surpassed the 3 dragons and climbed to the heavenly Dao realm. Later, when Fang Yan returned from Huaqing, he told her that Song transplanting seedlings had attacked him. The fact that this old man could instruct the martial addict to do things for him proved his true strength. And Fang Yan, who had the heart of Tai Chi, had almost no power to fight back when they fought. Such an opponent was worth a good revenge. Immeasurable Lord, Tao transplanting seedlings shouted. His body accelerated again, and the air wave controlled by his palms shrouded the top of Yi Rou's head. Whoosh, the giant cauldron covered Yi Rou's whole body. The cauldron spun wildly, like a powerful tornado. And Yi Rou was in the eye of the tornado. The cauldron spun faster and faster, but its area was getting smaller and smaller. Its volume began to shrink, ready to reduce the area that Yi Rou could move. When it touched Yi Rou or any other object, it would explode. Its power was no less than a powerful Russian's latest military product, the K-33 Devil Grenade. Tao transplanting seedlings obviously had no patience to wait for the cauldron to tighten. He would never give Yi Rou any chance. As his body fell, he once again punched the cyclone. Another sword-shaped chi pierced the transparent cauldron. He wanted to pierce his own cyclone. Boom, the huge cyclone exploded, shaking the entire lotus flower temple. The bursting air currents were like rows of sharp blades that shot out in all directions. Those young nuns were hit by the airflow and were all pushed away, screaming. The old nun Jing Hui didn't move, because she knew that Fang Yan would protect her. Just like what happened just now. Just as she was thinking about this, she watched helplessly as Fang Yan hugged the phoenix and threw himself in the direction of the lotus pond. My Guanyin Bodhisattva. Jing Hui hurriedly asked for help from her other big backer. Chapter 753. When the old nun Jing Hui's body was about to be swept away by the violent airflow, a huge figure rushed over, jumped into the air and hugged her tightly. The old nun's head hit the ground, and she still couldn't stand steadily after landing. Guanyin Bodhisattva. Jing Hui chanted. I'm not Guanyin Bodhisattva. Bailey Lu carefully put the old nun on the ground and said, Of course you're not Guanyin Bodhisattva. You were sent by Guanyin Bodhisattva. I'm not sent by Guanyin Bodhisattva. You don't know your own heart. I said I'm not. Bailey Lu said grumpily. He was a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would have let the real Guanyin Bodhisattva save him. Donor, everything has its cause and effect. You came to the Lotus Temple, this is a trap. You saved me in a critical moment, this is the result. Bailey Lu strode away. Is this old nun trying to persuade me to believe in Buddha? He is a man who will become a heavenly Dao expert. Seeing that Yi Rou had easily sent Tao addict Song transplanting seedling flying, his heart was in turmoil, and all sorts of feelings welled up in him. Is this the strength of a heavenly Dao expert? Is this the gap between a heavenly Dao expert and a non-heaven Dao expert? No wonder people say that a slight difference can lead to a great loss. Many years ago, he heard that Tao addict Song transplanting was about to step into the heavenly Dao realm and become the most powerful existence below the 3 dragons. However, after so many years, he still couldn't step in. He didn't know what kind of problem was blocking him from the heavenly Dao when he was trying to climb the heavenly Dao. Bailey Lu didn't care whether others could enter the heavenly Dao realm or not. He only cared whether he could enter the heavenly Dao realm or not. Since Yi Rou entered, he must enter too. Because this was the hope of the Bailey family for hundreds of years. It's hard to enter the heavenly Dao with godly fists. This sentence was like the Monkey King's band tightening curse, tightly binding them. Countless talents of the Bailey family worked hard day and night to break this curse, traveled mountains and rivers, visited famous experts, and challenged the heroes of the world. Everyone said that he, by Lilu, was the most promising man in the Bailey clan to climb the heavenly way. However, he knew very well that he was still very far away from that door. He didn't even know where that door was or what it looked like. Not being able to enter the door, whether it was the door of the heavenly Tao or the door of love, was the most tragic thing for a man. As Yi Ro had showcased the strength of the heavenly Tao realm, it left Bailey Lu agitated and excited. He even forgot about his heavy injuries. Fang Yen carried the phoenix's body far away from the battlefield, all the way to the edge of the distant lotus pond before settling down. A gust of wind blew past, messing up Fang Yan's hair and snapping a large number of withered leaves in the lotus pond. Phoenix was held in Fang Yan's arms. After tidying up her long hair, she was about to ask if Fang Yan was all right when Fang Yan tossed her aside and flew back into the fray. Phoenix looked at Fang Yan's back and sighed softly. In the past, when this man had devoted his whole heart to her, she had no way to protect and cherish it. Now, he had devoted the same heart to another woman. Why did she feel so sad? Is this jealousy? She asked herself in her heart. After the big explosion, the ground was a mess. The dust and weeds in the courtyard were swept away by the strong airflow that was like a wave of light. It looked clean and bright. Yi Ro, who was in the courtyard, had disappeared. Tao addict, song transplanting seedlings, who had descended from the sky, had also disappeared. The courtyard was quiet, as if nothing had happened. The beautiful woman in black who was calm and composed, the evil Daoist with his black robe fluttering in the wind, and the huge ball of light that was so bright that it was hard to open one's eyes. It was all a dream. It was a realistic yet illusory dream. However, on the stone wall not far away, there was a huge stone cave. The stone cave made a cracking sound, and large pieces of stone fell from the stone wall. Rumble, a large stone rolled down from the hillside, with sparks and lightning along the way. It looked impressive and extraordinary. It fell on the pile of stones on the ground. A crack appeared in the middle, and then it broke into countless small pieces. On both sides of the huge stone cave, Yi Ro and Tao addict song transplanting seedlings stood on a huge stone facing each other. Yi Ro's mouth was bleeding, and it seemed that she was seriously injured. Tao addict song transplanting seedling's long hair was messy, and his black robe was torn. He looked extremely embarrassed, unlike the sage-like appearance of the 7 addicts of Wuxia. Fang Yan was worried about Yi Ro's safety. He tiptoed on the ground, jumped several times, and rushed to Yi Ro's side. "Ro, are you okay?" Fang Yan asked anxiously. Yi Ro had been paying attention to Tao addict song transplanting seedlings. When she heard Fang Yan's question, she replied softly, "I'm fine." It had to be said that Tao addict song transplanting seedlings had been famous for decades, and it was indeed unique. The power of the 100 seals of the tortoise breath was really strong. Although she had already thought of a way to break it, it was still difficult to control the violent and deep energy when she made her move. Yi Ro knew that if she let this move of song transplanting seedlings explode on top of her head or around her, she would be smashed to pieces, and even the nuns around her would be in danger. Fang Yan and Bailey Lu could probably find an opportunity to escape, but what about the nuns? What about Phoenix? They were also human beings, and Phoenix was Fang Yan's first love. Humph! Yi Ro curled her lips coldly. Therefore, at the critical moment when the 100 seals of the tortoise breath was about to explode, Yi Ro held up the chi wave with both hands, using the chi of the way of heaven in her body as a guide, and brought it to the stone wall in the distance. Although the 100 seals of the tortoise breath was thrown off, Yi Ro's body was still attacked by the strong airflow. Her internal organs were injured, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. "Leave the rest to me." Fang Yan stared coldly at Tao addict song transplanting seedlings and said, "No." Yi Ro refused. "Your body hasn't recovered. Just protect them." The black hat on Tao addict song transplanting seedling's head became pieces of cloth, so his thin, dry and dark face, like that of an old farmer, was finally revealed. There were several wounds on his face, and blood was smeared on his face, which looked funny. Hearing the conversation between Fang Yan and Yi Rou, he laughed, pointed at Fang Yan's face, and scolded, "Fang Yan, you are a weak and incompetent coward. The person I wanted to kill was you, but I didn't expect you to hide behind a woman and let her protect you. Don't you feel ashamed?" "What can I do?" Fang Yan said helplessly, "I can't beat you. If you are a man, fight with me alone. Don't let a woman stand up for you. Otherwise, you will be laughed at. If I fight with you alone and get killed by you, everyone will think that I was brave and died a worthy death. Is that what you mean? You shameless brat." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Song transplanting seedlings, you just said that you wanted to attack me and my wife. Why do you want to fight with me alone now? You are the Tao addict, one of the 7 addicts of Wuxia. How can you talk like you are farting? You don't even abide by what you said, and you want others to listen to you? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? But I can understand you. You know you can't beat Yi Rou, and you are afraid. Now you want to run away? How dare you?" Song transplanting seedlings shouted angrily, "Fang Yan, do you really think that Yi Rou, an expert who has just entered the heavenly Dao state, can be my opponent? If I want to leave, do you think you two good-for-nothings can stop me? You overestimate yourselves." "There's me." Bailey Lu walked step by step to the side of the gravel beach and said, "No matter what, you and Bai Xiu will stay here today." Fang Yan glanced at Bailey Lu and said, "Why don't you find Bai Xiu first? If he's dead, stab him a few more times. If he's not dead, stab him another 20 times." Bailey Lu sneered and said, "This is not something a man would do. Bai Xiu no longer has the ability to fight, so how can I attack him? Besides, he's buried in the rubble. Don't tell me you want me to dig him out? You'll have to work hard. I'll treat you to a drink when we get back. Why don't you kill Bai Xiu, and I'll treat you to a drink when we get back." Fang Yan looked at song transplanting seedlings standing opposite him and decided to first get rid of the most dangerous enemy in front of him. Since Bai Xiu was already buried in the gravel, he could dig him out after song transplanting seedlings was done. If he was dead, he would stab him twice. If he was still alive, he would stab him 20 times. Fang Yan was really worried for Bai Xiu. Why did he have to resort to resurrection for no reason? Didn't he know that everyone hated zombies? This was cheating without any technical content. The Tao addict pointed at Fang Yan and laughed. She said, "Fang Yan, Bai Xiu killed your father, but you can't even avenge your father's murderer. Aren't you pitiful? Aren't you sad? Do you have a son?" Fang Yan looked at the Tao addict Song transplanting seedlings and asked, "You bastard?" Song transplanting seedlings thought that Fang Yan was deliberately insulting him. Although he was not a qualified Taoist priest, he had never married in his life. Now Fang Yan asked him if he had a son. Wasn't this an insult? "That's good," Fang Yan said. "In that case, even if we kill you, we don't have to worry about someone jumping out to avenge you. You'll die for nothing." As Fang Yan spoke, he leaped and rushed towards Song transplanting seedlings. As he was in midair, a blurry figure had already flown past him, and then that figure and Song transplanting seedlings fought. "I love the heavenly Dao realm," Fang Yan thought to himself. "I love this woman very much." Even if the whole world scolded him for being a gigolo, he was still proud that he had a heavenly Dao realm wife. Chapter 754. Protect the Nun. Fang Yan shouted to Bailey Lu. Song transplanting was behind Bai Xiu. Were there any other villains behind Song transplanting? Fang Yan was worried about the safety of the Nun, Phoenix, and the others, so he had been guarding them. Now that he was going to join forces with Yi Rou to deal with Tao addict Song transplanting, she needed Bailey Lu to do it. Good people always worked harder than bad people because good people cared about everyone they interacted with or the onlookers. When Spider-Man, Iron Man, The Flash, Batman, and Superman fought with the bad guys, they had to save ordinary people who were thrown out by the bad guys at any time. Because the bad guys never treated others as human beings. Fang Yan's heart jumped. and the strong burning sensation in his dantian came again. Since he moved the volcano in Yi Rou's body into his own, he often felt their existence. It was like a burning devil stirring up trouble in his body. Fang Yen tried to pull them out several times, but when he channeled his qi to his dantian, the small flames suddenly burned fiercely when it encountered his qi. The slight burning sensation turned into a scalding stimulus, making him feel as if a hole was about to be burned into his stomach. Every time he wanted to do something, it would remind him not to use too much force. This feeling was really helpless. However, even so, Fang Yen still rushed to Tao addict Song transplanting seedlings without hesitation. As Song transplanting said, "Don't you feel ashamed to let a woman protect you?" Fang Yen pretended to be indifferent, but in fact, he still cared. Shouldn't a man stand in front of a woman to shelter her from the wind and rain? How could he let a woman stand in front of him and risk her life for him? Fang Yen was a proud man, and proud men wanted to do something to prove their value. Although it was a bit stupid to do so. But it was enough to help Yi Rou distract Song transplanting for a while. Yi Rou vomited blood, and he felt sad and distressed. He didn't want Yi Rou to get hurt again because she was the woman he loved deeply. Fang Yen was the first to rush out, in order to fight for some opportunities for Yi Rou. Yi Rou understood what Fang Yen meant, so she ran even faster than Fang Yen. As soon as Yi Wen and Song transplanting came into contact, they began to meet force with force, fighting speed with speed. It was too much for the eyes to take in. When Fang Yen arrived, Song Zanyang's figure flashed and he flew toward the roof of the Lotus Temple. Yi Rou tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and followed closely behind. Fang Yen stood where Song Zanyang had been standing, feeling like he was being humiliated. "Please, I'm also your opponent, okay? What do you mean by running away when I come?" Yi Rou and the Tao addict, Song transplanting, were fighting in the air, punching and kicking. Their palms collided with each other, and the enormous force of the collision caused their bodies to split apart. They were separated further and further in the air, like two lone swallows flying in different directions. Then, they returned at an even faster speed, collided again, and the distance between them increased again. Fang Yen gritted his teeth, ignoring the burning pain in his dantian, and attacked behind them. His body swayed left and right in the air, like a clumsy duck. In the air, he used drunken crane riding the wind, a unique skill created by Mo Qingdi. Fang Yen struck out with his palm, attacking Song Zanyang from behind, trying to form a pincer attack with Yi Rou. The person Song Zanyang hated the most was Fang Yen, and the person he wanted to kill the most was also Fang Yen. If he killed the others while he was doing this, then they would be out of luck. But they didn't expect to meet Yi Rou, a master in the heavenly Dao realm. Song Zanyang was out of luck. Lovers were connected by heart. Yi Rou noticed Fang Yan's attack from behind. She sped up and rushed in front of Song Zanyang at the same time as Fang Yen, attacking Song Zanyang fiercely from the front and back. "Despicable person!" Song Zanyang gritted his teeth and cursed. His body turned 180 degrees, and he struck out 81 palms at Fang Yen behind him. He wanted to get rid of the burden, Fang Yen, first. But Fang Yen was like a loach in the water. His palms moved to the left, and Fang Yan's body floated to the right. His palms moved to the right, and Fang Yan's body floated to the right. His body was like a feather, a ball of cotton. And when he waved his palms, the wind brought with them could easily knock away the feather and cotton. Drunken crane riding the wind. Song Zanyang's mind was in a mess. He knew that Fang Yen was using drunken crane riding the wind, a top-notch movement created by the genius Mo Qingdi. Understanding was one thing, but not being able to crack it was another. While Song Zanyang was facing off against Fang Yen, Yi Rou's fist pierced through the clouds and air, heading for his back. Song Zanyang couldn't turn around in time, so he used his right elbow to meet Yi Rou's fist. Bam! Yi Rou's fist slammed into Song Zanyang's elbow. Song Zanyang laughed and turned to Yi Rou. "Yi Rou, you idiot! Don't you know that the elbow is harder than the fist?" "I don't believe it." Yi Rou looked at him expressionlessly. At this moment, a majestic force slammed into his elbow. A second strike, a third strike, a fourth strike. A heavenly Dao realm expert had opened up all the meridians in the human body, and the qi in their body would circulate endlessly. If non-heavenly Dao realm experts were streams of all sizes, then no matter how the streams changed, their ultimate goal was to rush into the sea. But heavenly Dao realm experts were the sea themselves, and all the qi was used internally in the sea. You expended a portion of the qi, but there would be more qi replenishing it. There was a saying that humans were not omnipotent, and there would always be a time when their strength was used up. For example, you could only throw 100 punches, and you could only run 10 kilometers. You could throw 100 punches and run 10 kilometers before collapsing from exhaustion. However, after a heavenly Dao realm expert punched out 100 times, they would still be able to deliver another 100 or 200 punches. After running 10 kilometers, they would still be able to run 20 to 30 kilometers. In that case, how could they be enemies with heavenly Dao realm experts? Song Zaniang was that pitiful 10-kilometer contestant. He could only feel his arm twisting and throbbing again and again, as if it was being squeezed by an iron clamp. Kachat, kachat, kachat. His arm didn't seem to have any abnormalities on the surface, but the sound came from deep within the flesh and bone. It was as though there was a tiny person hiding in his arm, eating beans. The worst part was that the tiny person treated his bones as beans. The bones in Song Zanyang's right arm fractured inch by inch, turning into bone scraps. An even louder and clearer voice was heard. Song Zanyang's entire arm exploded, as though someone had installed a miniature bomb in it. Bone and flesh flew, and blood splattered everywhere. Yi Ro didn't want her face and body to be covered in blood, so she kicked Song Zaniang in the stomach. At the same time that she kicked him away, her body was also retreating at an extremely fast speed. Bam! Song Zanyang's body rolled all the way on the ground, and then came to a stop in front of a huge Buddha statue. He crawled up from the ground and looked at the wound on his arm that was still bleeding profusely. With a muffled groan, he quickly took out a small black porcelain bottle from his bosom and opened it. He poured all the precious medicinal powder in the bottle onto his arm. The bleeding stopped, but the pain didn't stop. Even with Song Zanyang's endurance, he couldn't bear the pain of losing his arm. When the force hit his arm again and again, it wasn't just his arm that hurt, but his whole body. When his arm exploded, the flesh of his limbs, his internal organs, his brain, and everything else in his body seemed to explode at once. Yi Ro! Song Zaniang roared in exasperation. I'll kill you. I'll wipe out the entire Yi family. I hope you keep your word. Yi Ro's body floated down, and she stood on the shoulders of the huge stone Buddha statue. Her black robe fluttered, and her long hair fluttered. Her face was cold, and her temperament was cold. She looked like a goddess from the heavens. Song Zaniang kicked the stone Buddha statue, and a green light flashed between his palms. Crack! There was a crisp sound, and the stone Buddha statue cracked from bottom to top. There was a sharp whistling sound from the crack, and it was like a stone snake darting toward the soles of Yi Ro's feet. Yi Ro tiptoed and she jumped high into the air. Then she fell at an even faster speed. Boom, their fists collided. Yi Ro's body flew up again, and then landed again. Boom, there was another collision. This time, Yi Ro's body fell toward the lotus pond, and Song Zanyang's body flew diagonally toward the front of the temple. He wanted to run away. Song Zaniang was afraid, and he wanted to break away from the fight. Fang Yen knew that Song Zaniang was afraid, and that he would only lose his life if he continued to fight. So, to him, it was only a matter of time before he ran away. Because Fang Yen had expected that Song Zaniang would run away, he had been on guard against Song Zanyang's escape. Seeing that Song Zaniang was really running toward the front yard of the Lotus Temple, Fang Yen immediately chased after him. "Old man, where do you think you're going?" Fang Yen reached out for Song Zanyang's neck. Song Zaniang suddenly turned around and stared at Fang Yen with bloodshot eyes, and then slapped at Fang Yen's head. 100 seals of the turtle breath, a transparent giant bell stretched out from Song Zanyang's arm, and with a whistling sound, it smashed toward Fang Yan's head. Bang! There was the sound of something breaking. Chapter 755. Die. Song transplanting roared hoarsely. Boom, the gigantic transparent air hammer was almost tangible as it smashed heavily towards Fang Yan's weak head. Dao addict Song transplanting had been famous for a long time, and his cultivation was unfathomable. Right now, he wanted to kill Fang Yan with one strike before he escaped. Therefore, he would not hold back when he attacked. This was not a deathbed struggle, but he did his best. This was the most powerful attack he had ever made, and it was also the reason why he wanted to kill someone so badly. Fang Yan, if I don't get rid of him, my Dao heart will never be at peace. Fang Yan was like a thorn stuck there, making it hard to swallow or move. If he did not get rid of this thorn, he would never be at peace, and he would never be able to step into the heavenly Dao realm he dreamed of. He really could not understand how that little bitch Yiwen could step into the heavenly Dao realm. If it wasn't for the fact that the heavenly Dao realm did not require the approval of a certain department in the country, he would have suspected that the department had done something behind the scenes for her. The hammer made a whirring sound, and then smashed heavily on Fang Yan's head. The principle of the turtle-breathing 100 seals was to mobilize the 3 pure qi in the body to transform, and then form a huge body of energy. This was what people often called a domain, which was somewhat similar to Fang Yan's Taiji realm. The only difference was that the turtle-breathing 100 seals could only be used once, and it would disappear after the explosion. Fang Yan's Taiji realm could be used continuously, as long as he was in a fighting state, or if he wanted to. Obviously, the Taiji heart was much more advanced. These days, who didn't carry a few flashy skills when they traveled the world? If you said you knew Black Tiger Steel's heart, donkey rolls, Zhang family crutch, Li Air scissors, Li Air would be embarrassed to say hello to a fellow practitioner. Even a heavenly Dao realm expert like Yi Wen found it extremely difficult to withstand Song Zanyang's turtle breath 100 seals. Eventually, she suffered a backlash from the violent force and was heavily injured, much less Fang Yan, a good-for-nothing who had even lost his heart of Taiji. Song transplanting swung the hammer. All he needed to do was let the ring of light touch Fang Yan's head. In that case, the energy condensed by the 100 seals of the turtle breath would explode, directly tearing Fang Yan to pieces. He couldn't even find a complete bone. I'm going to tear Fang Yan's body into 1,000,000 pieces. I'm going to tear him into 1,000,000 pieces. That was what Song transplanting seedlings was thinking. Fang Yan was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he didn't think that Song Zanyang, who had already decided to run away, would suddenly turn around and attack. Moreover, he didn't want to waste so much energy to use such a big move. At least in his heart, he thought that this kind of behavior was very stupid and irrational. Come on, didn't your dad teach you combat experience when you were young? If he won, he would run. If he couldn't, he would run. Don't look back. Fang Yan sensed the enormous power contained in the qi bell. It was a violent, twisted, and uncontrollable airflow. Although it couldn't compare to the huge grindstone that Song transplanting seedlings had used against a heavenly Dao expert, it was still something that no one dared to underestimate. At least, it was extremely dangerous for Fang Yan, who had lost the heart of Taiji. Fang Yan. Yi Ro ran towards him like a bolt of lightning. Song transplanting seedlings, you old dog. Bailey Lu's eyes were wide open, and he couldn't even react. Song transplanting seedlings ran suddenly, and Fang Yan chased too fiercely. Song transplanting seedlings wanted to get rid of Fang Yan before he left, which was something that no one had thought of. Therefore, only Fang Yan and only Fang Yan could receive this blow with all his strength. Then I'll do it myself, Fang Yan said to himself. His sea of energy burned again, as if the endless autumn plains had been ignited by a fire. And the gas that Fang Yan transported into his dantian was not ice water, but gasoline. Boom! In just one round, Fang Yan felt that his body was in unbearable pain, and the feeling of his entire abdomen being burned hit him again. Not only did the sea of fire not decrease, but it was also rapidly increasing in intensity. First, it was a small sea of fire, then a large area of grassland was ignited, and finally the mountains, rocks, and soil were also burning, moving a mountain. Fang Yan experienced that feeling again. When he moved the volcano in Yi Ro's body into his own, He used the heart of Taiji in his dantian to accept and melt it. Of course, he didn't succeed, and his heart of Taiji was dead. But the volcano was still alive, and although it didn't keep burning, it was still an active volcano. From time to time, it would spew out white smoke and a few flames to prove that it was still a young and strong lad in the fire world. During this period of time, Fang Yan didn't dare to use the energy in his dantian. Even when he ran to the 1,000-year palace with that idiot Gongsun Su to steal the divine staff and was chased like a dog by the priests of the 1,000-year palace, he tried to use the energy in his dantian as little as possible. Unless he had no other choice, he would endure the intense heat and pain to use his energy to kill the enemy. In those long days, the heart of Taiji didn't even use it once, because Fang Yan couldn't feel their existence at all. He couldn't use it even if he wanted to. There was no time to think, and there was nothing to think about. Fang Yan clenched his hands into fists and suddenly swung them towards the big bell. Boom! A red stream of air that seemed to be burning rushed towards the center of the giant hammer, and this fresh energy burned the surrounding air until it crackled. Fang Yan's fists became crimson, his arms became crimson, even his face, hair, and eyebrows became crimson. The red flames were like a red fire dragon, charging forward, trying to knock away the powerful air hammer. Idiot! Seeing Fang Yan's counterattack, Song Transplanting Seedlings laughed savagely. His goal was to let the air hammers in his hands come into contact with Fang Yan. As soon as they came into contact, they would explode. But he didn't expect that Fang Yan would take the initiative to punch the air hammers. This was really looking for sh*t with a lantern, looking for death. However, a shocking scene appeared before everyone's eyes. Whoosh! The fire dragon actually passed through the center of the bell without any obstruction, and then flew into the sky with the huge bell, into the clouds, and into the depths of the universe. Fang Yan's face froze. What's going on? He did have such a plan in mind, but it was just a thought. At least he thought it was just a thought. Such a thing couldn't possibly happen, because he clearly saw that Yi Wen was seriously injured and vomiting blood after taking his turtle breath and 100 seals. Compared to Yi Wen, he was still a little bit weaker. Song Transplanting Seedlings was even more stunned. What the F***ck is he playing at? Where's my hammer? His turtle breath and 100 seals were formed from the true qi in his body. In other words, as long as the bell was in his hands, it was closely connected to the steady flow of qi in his body. As long as the qi was continuous, the bell would never disappear. What was going on? He was still desperately channeling his true qi. When he saw Fang Yan using his fists to block the attack, he increased his strength and activated the remaining energy in his dantian that he had used to escape. For a moment, he realized that this was not the right thing to do. He had to save some of his true qi to escape, to deal with the more complicated situation when Yi Wen caught up with him. Fortunately, he had a backup plan, and someone to help him, but where had her Zhongzi gone? The fire dragon roared as it flew into the sky, bringing the hammer with it and disappearing without a trace. It didn't explode. Song Transplanting Seedlings looked in the direction where the fire dragon had disappeared, his face full of shock. Every attack of the turtle breath and 100 seals was made from condensed qi, as if it were solid. However, each of these entities was a domain. As long as you were enveloped by the domain, or if the balance of the domain was broken, it would explode and tear you to pieces. That was how the turtle breath and 100 seals worked. What was going on? You broke my turtle breath and 100 seals? Song Transplanting Seedlings looked at Fang Yan in shock, unable to accept what had just happened. This idiot, didn't he say that his Taiji heart had disappeared? Didn't he say that he was no match for him, that he would be killed if he fought to the death, that he would be laughed at for his bravery? Could it be that this guy was lying? Had he been deliberately hiding his strength? Actually, he was too. Song Transplanting Seedlings didn't dare to think any further. Moreover, he subconsciously felt that this was impossible. That was a heavenly Dao expert. He had worked hard for decades and still hadn't been able to take that step. How could an unscrupulous kid like Fang Yan become a heavenly Dao expert? It's me. Fang Yan was also full of shock. After hearing Song Zanyang's question, He hurriedly put away his confused and frightened expression and opened his mouth, as if he had known this would happen. He said, "The seal of turtle-breathing 100 seals is far inferior to my heart of Tai Chi." As Fang Yen spoke, he kicked at song-transplanting seedling's abdomen. Song-transplanting seedling's reaction was extremely fast. Although he still had a look of disbelief on his face, his body was already flying backward. Fang Yan's kick was a feint. When he saw song-transplanting seedling's body flying, he rushed up and punched at song-transplanting seedling's chest. Bang! Song-transplanting seedling's body was hit, and he flew away at an even faster speed. This old man was extremely cunning. He would rather take Fang Yan's punch and use Fang Yan's push and his own strength to run to the front yard of Lotus Flower Temple. There was someone there to receive him. Killing a Tao addict, Fang Yan is. Fang Yan was really furious. He took out a pistol, aimed at song-transplanting seedling's back, and pulled the trigger. Bang! Song-transplanting seedling's body staggered in midair, and then fell to the ground. Chapter 756. Whoosh! Yi Ro's figure appeared like a ghost beside Fang Yan. She arrived almost at the same time as Fang Yan's landing, which showed how much she cared about Fang Yan. She stood in front of Fang Yan and looked at Fang Yan anxiously, asking, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "What was going on just now? Where's song-transplanting's hammer?" Clang, clang, clang. Bailey Lu also rushed to Fang Yan's side and looked at Fang Yan anxiously. He looked him up and down and asked, "You won't die, right?" "I won't die." Fang Yan said, "What was going on just now? Where's song-transplanting's hammer?" If Fang Yan was fine and wouldn't die, then Tao addict song-transplanting would be the unlucky one. Everyone's eyes turned to song-transplanting, focusing on the bleeding muzzle on his back. Song-transplanting was seriously injured. After falling to the ground, he didn't move for a long time. When he was a little more awake, he wanted to get up from the ground, at least to change to a slightly more dignified posture. But he found that his body was in pain and his strength was quickly fading away. Not to mention getting up, even turning over was extremely difficult. He moved a little, changing his lying posture into a forward posture. He stared at the gloomy sky with grief and indignation, unable to accept what had happened in front of him. He was the one who wanted to kill Fang Yan. Why did he end up in such a miserable situation? "Where's my hammer?" Song-transplanting asked aloud. "I'm not very sure," Fang Yan said with a puzzled look. "It seems that my fire dragon took it to the sky." "Why can your fire dragon take my hammer to the sky?" Song-transplanting began to cough violently when he asked this question. As he coughed, his mouth was covered with blood. His internal organs were seriously injured. Every time he coughed, a lot of blood spurted out. "You don't have the heart of Tai Chi anymore, do you? How can your strength Chi condense and materialize?" "I don't know much about it." "Wait for me to go back and study it," Fang Yan said embarrassedly. Faced with the humility of others asking for guidance, he, as the master of the fire dragon, did not understand the principles behind it. His heart was filled with guilt, and he felt that he did not deserve to be a good teacher. "After all, it just happened. I also need some time to think about some of the contents. Why are you using a gun?" Song asked. "We're all from the inner Jianghu, so it's inevitable for us to compete and learn from each other. We don't have to worry about using knives and swords. Why do you use a spear?" When song-transplanting seedlings asked this question, Yi Ro and Bailey Lu also turned their eyes to Fang Yan's face. Yeah, how could this guy use a gun? How could he have a pistol at such a crucial moment? There were many grudges and grievances in the rivers and lakes. If you had an arm chopped off, you would think of a way to chop off the other party's arm. If you had been stabbed by an enemy, you would think of a way to stab him 12 or 20 times. However, there had never been such a case where you used a gun to blow up the other party's head after your arm was chopped off. Everyone came to an agreement and formed a non-existent rule that everyone followed: no firearms. Besides, for these masters of the inner Jianghu, what was a gun? What was a bullet? In the world, martial arts were the highest. This was their dignity and pride. It was a forbidden area where they could not get along with firearms. However, King used a gun. This was cheating against the rules and would be despised by others. Fang Yan felt even more embarrassed. His cheeks were burning with pain. His eyes avoided eye contact with Yi Ro and Bailey Lu's eyes, and he did not want to look into Song Transplanting Seedling's condemning and questioning eyes. He explained in a dry voice, "Poverty stunts ambition, so I brought a gun as insurance. You also know that my Tai Chi heart had disappeared. Your martial arts were too good, and you ran too fast. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to catch up with you, so I accidentally took out a pistol from my pocket and shot you. I didn't do it on purpose. I hope you don't mind too much." Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi became a stillborn fetus. If he used his internal strength, he would have to bear the fire. Fang Yan suddenly felt very insecure, especially when he was dealing with a group of inner Jianghu monsters. His heart was filled with a sense of inferiority. When he was carrying out a mission in the Millennium Palace, he and his friend Gongsun Qi experienced a life and death escape. There were several times when they were driven into a dead end, but because they were desperate, they fought with their lives on the line and resorted to all sorts of means. Finally, they had the chance to escape from that hell and return to Huaxia alive. It was also this experience that made Fang Yan feel the beauty of life and the importance of life. He had to live for himself, for his family and lover. He couldn't die, he had to protect himself well, so, when he came out to protect Phoenix, he deliberately prepared a gun with him. Things like guns were not omnipotent. For example, when he fought with Song Transplanting Seedlings alone, he had no chance to take out a gun or shoot. Even if he took out a gun, he might not have a chance to shoot Song Transplanting Seedlings. Because just as he raised his gun, Song Transplanting Seedlings might have already rushed in and twisted one of his arms. People like them, the speed of moving and dodging was faster than the speed of a bullet. When he swung the fire dragon that pierced Tao Transplanting Seedling's chi hammer, both Song Transplanting Seedling and Fang Yan were a little dazed. They couldn't figure out what happened in the middle of it all. Song Transplanting Seedling even began to be suspicious, thinking that Fang Yan was also a heavenly Dao expert who was hiding his strength. Take advantage of an illness to kill. Fang Yan reacted quickly and kicked Song Transplanting Seedling in the abdomen. What he did not expect was that Song Zaniang, this old man, was extremely cunning. After he took the kick, he used the recoil force to escape. Without thinking, Fang Yan took out a gun from his pocket and shot at Song Transplanting Seedling's back. He really didn't do it on purpose. Song Transplanting Seedling wanted to say, King mind. I mind so much that I'm about to die, okay? I'm sorry this time, if you have any requests, just tell me. Fang Yan looked at Song Transplanting Seedling's twisted expression and couldn't help but ask. He was a kind person, but he couldn't bear to see others look so pitiful. Whenever someone looked at him like that, he would instantly feel sympathy, even if the person he was facing was the Tao Transplanting Seedling, who he hated to the bone. Please. Song Transplanting Seedling didn't finish his sentence before he coughed violently again. He coughed so violently that a large amount of blood sprayed out, and then fell on his face and body. The Tao Transplanting Seedling of the generation at this time looked really tragic. Don't worry, if you have something to say it slowly, Fang Yan comforted him. Except for you, no one is in a hurry anyway. Kill me, Song Transplanting Seedling said in a hoarse voice. He knew that his important internal organs had been pierced, and even if someone helped him back, he probably wouldn't live past today. Now he was hanging on to his last breath, and he didn't want to die so pathetically. Don't use the gun. He wanted Fang Yan to punch his head, he wanted Fang Yan to smash his chest, he wanted Fang Yan to break his neck, he wanted Fang Yan to, no matter what, don't use the gun. He was the Tao addict, one of the 7 addicts of Huaxia, and he was a famous figure in the Jianghu. He was a legend of his generation, and he was admired by countless people. He didn't want to wait until after his death. When people in the Jianghu talked about him, they would say something like this. Song Transplanting Seedling was a hero of his generation, And although he didn't manage to enter Taoism, his cultivation was unfathomable, and he was the most outstanding figure in Taoism in 100 years. Unfortunately, he was shot to death by Fang Yen. He was so afraid that the last sentence would be stuck on his head and destroy his lifelong reputation. He hoped that he died in battle, killed by the peerless godly kung fu of the Jianghu. This was very important, and it was difficult for people who were not in the Jianghu to understand. "That's the request?" Fang Yen asked. "That's the request." Song Transplanting Seedling was delighted. Fang Yen agreed. This guy wasn't as bad as he thought he was. Although he was already very, very bad in his mind, the Fang Yen in his mind was still worse than the current Fang Yen. "Are there any other requests?" Fang Yen asked. "No." Song Transplanting Seedling's eyelids were getting heavier, and he could barely keep them open. He knew that he was going to die, and he was anxious. If Fang Yen didn't make a move, he would be shot to death by Fang Yen. He would be marked on the pillar of shame in history, and he couldn't accept such a fate. "This is your last request before you die." Fang Yen couldn't help but laugh and said, "I hate you so much, how could I agree to it?" Song Transplanting Seedling's eyes were already closed, but his body was still twitching violently. He was very angry, really angry. If there was another chance, he really wanted to jump up and beat up Fang Yen. He wanted to eat his flesh and drink his blood. Why did he mistakenly believe the words of Hou Zhendong, the martial arts addict, and not kill him? Facing such scum, he should have crushed him to pieces the moment he met him. Under the gaze of Yi Ro and Bailey Lu, Fang Yen smiled shyly, then raised the pistol and pulled the trigger at Tao Transplanting Seedling's body. Bang, bang, bang. He finished the remaining 5 bullets in the pistol in one breath. The Tao Transplanting Seedling closed his eyes forever. He died with everlasting regret. Chapter 757. Fang Yen still felt that it was not enough to vent his hatred even after he had shot all the bullets in the pistol. The bad guys were killed, but could the good guys who were harmed by them come back? His father, who was scolded as a good-for-nothing by some people in Swallow Dock because he liked calligraphy and painting and hated kung fu. He was a man who loved his wife and son deeply. Was he going to die in vain? The old man who lost his son and his hair turned white overnight, and the lonely woman who lost her husband, could the trauma they suffered be made up for? Would they be able to find happiness again? The old man no longer stared at the King Kong eagle, and the woman no longer carried a basket to pick melons and weeds in front of her husband's grave every day. Her main purpose was to talk to her husband for a while. Those bad guys, they deserve to die. "You killed him." Bai Lilu stood beside Fang Yen and said in a low voice. "Was it cruel?" Fang Yen turned and smiled at Bai Lilu. His smile was dry and his eyes were red. He looked like he was about to cry. Song Transplanting was dead. He killed him with his own hands. But he didn't feel the pleasure of revenge. "You see, I didn't even agree to his last request, I just shot him to death with a gun. I made holes in his body. The Tao addict, who was so famous, was killed by me with a gun. Did I have no bottom line? Did I not care about Jianghu morality?" Bai Lilu frowned and looked at Fang Yen with scrutiny. He said, "Did you hit your head? When did you have a bottom line and talk about Jianghu morality?" Only a fool would talk about Jianghu morality with such a person. Bai Lilu spat at the Tao addict, Song Transplanting. "They killed your father and broke up your family. This time they want to kidnap Phoenix to threaten you. If you fall into their hands, do you think you will still be alive? What do you think they will do to you? A dignified death? I'm afraid that when the time comes, they'll make you beg for death. Are you crazy to talk about morality with such people? I'm just saying." Fang Yen chuckled. "I just think it's boring." "How is it boring?" They were in cahoots with Bai Xiu. Song Transplanting was Jiang Junling's teacher, and Bai Xiu was Jiang Junling's lackey. Why would Bai Xiu do this to your family? Isn't it because you offended Jiang Junling, and Jiang Junling wants to exterminate your entire family? It's not too much to kill such a person 100 times over. What's there to feel sorry about? I'm not feeling sorry for him. Fang Yen shook his head. knowing that Bailey Lu did not understand the meaning of his words. They killed my father, and then I killed them, and what did we get for that, anyway? I lost my most important family, they lost their lives. What's the point? Bailey Lu thought for a long time and said, there are bad people in this world, so there are good people. When bad people do bad things, unless you don't make a sound, you are a good person. Bad people will come to you to take revenge. When bad people bully others, you can pretend not to see it. But if the bad guys bully you, can you pretend that nothing happened? I can't do it, and you can't do it. So, we are natural enemies. They want to kill us, and we want to kill them. Sometimes, when I think about it, the world is really very simple. Yi Rou came over and held Fang Yan's hand tightly. She didn't care how Fang Yan killed Song transplanting. She only cared that the man she loved was alive, and the bad guy who wanted to kill her man was dead. This was more important than anything else. Jianghu morality? Warrior spirit? Please, that was something only the living were qualified to talk about. She wanted her man to be a villain. As for abiding by Jianghu morality and promoting the warrior spirit, she could let others do it. She was even willing to do it herself. For this woman, her only request was, Fang Yan was alive. Fang Yan held Yi Rou's soft little hand tightly and said softly, I'm fine. I'm fine. Just now, it was a matter of life and death. Song transplanting's sudden attack was really dangerous. If it weren't for the fire dragon, his head would have been smashed by Song transplanting's hammer and all his limbs would have been disintegrated. If it weren't for the fire dragon, if he couldn't resist it, he and Yi Rou would have been separated forever. This warmth after a battle, this surprise after death, really made him cherish it very much. Fang Yan wanted to live. He wanted to be with Yi Rou, his grandfather, his mother, and all the people he cherished. Bailey Lu saw Fang Yan and Yi Rou holding hands tightly and their eyes full of love, as if nothing had happened. He said, there's another one. Bailey Lu knew the relationship between Fang Yan and Yi Rou, so he never thought of marrying Yi Rou. Sometimes he felt that the elders in his family were very stupid. Such two outstanding young people, could they just rely on the dignity of the elders and the glory of the family to threaten and force them? Fang Yan nodded and said, let's go and have a look. When the three of them walked back to the backyard, Phoenix and the nuns of Lotus Temple came to greet them. Phoenix saw Fang Yan and asked with concern, Fang Yan, are you all right? Then she looked at Yi Rou and Bailey Lu and asked, are you all right? I'm fine. Fang Yan said with a smile. It's good that you're fine. Phoenix was clearly relieved. Where's the Tao addict? Dead. Fang Yan said. I killed him with a gun. Phoenix nodded and said, I heard the gunshot. It's good that you're all right. These people are really capable of doing anything. Fang Yan pointed to the collapsed stone house and said, there's another person inside. You mean by Xiao? Fang Yan looked at Phoenix's eyes and said, yes. This person wants to kidnap you, I know. Phoenix bowed her head and said, he wants to kidnap me and then use my life to threaten you. Phoenix understood what Fang Yan and the others wanted to do. She turned to the old nun Jinghui and said, Nun, there's a dead person in the front yard. Let's go and read scriptures to him. I hope they won't be bad people in their next life. Amitba. When the old nun Jinghui heard there was a dead person in the yard, she hurriedly chanted the name of Buddha and said, what should we do? What should we do? Even Buddha couldn't help her with such a problem. Phoenix supported the old nun Jinghui and said, we just need to read the scriptures in peace. Let them deal with the other things, that's good. The old nun Jinghui nodded and said, we still need to call the police. After the old nun Jinghui walked away, Bailey Lu looked at the pile of stones and said, it's too troublesome to move the stones away bit by bit. I don't have the strength. However, I have a simple solution. With fire? Fang Yan looked at Bailey Lu and asked. Bailey Lu covered his chest with his hand and said, what do you think? Let's roast that by Xiao into a white pig. I've taken a look. This house is separated from the other yards, and there are stones behind it. Even if we set it on fire, it won't burn the forest on the mountain. It's best to use fire. No problem. Fang Yan said. Anyway, We have to help Jing Hui rebuild the Lotus Temple. Why don't we burn this place down? Fang Yan could kill Song transplanting rice with a random spear, and he could even burn Bai Xiu into ashes with a big fire. If Fang Yan ranked the people he hated the most in his heart, Bai Xiu would definitely be at the top of the list, ranked first. No matter whether it was Jiang Junling's instruction or Song transplanting rice's support, the person who killed his father, Fang Yixing, was Bai Xiu. Just based on this, Fang Yan was willing to kill Bai Xiu 1,000 times. So what if Bai Xiu was resurrected? It was just a chance for him to kill him again. Hearing that Fang Yan agreed to his plan, Bailey Lu grinned and said, "You go rest for a while. Leave the lighting of the fire to me. When I was at Swallow Dock, I lit a lot of fires to set up ambushes." Fang Yan nodded and said, "You've worked hard." Bailey Lu smiled and said, "We all know that you've been unhappy these years. We want to help you with something, but we don't know what we can do. Now that we can help you, I'm happy." They're also happy to know. Fang Yan felt the strong friendship in Bailey Lu's words, but he didn't say anything. Bailey Lu could be considered Fang Yan's unconventional friend. The two of them didn't spar often, but they didn't like each other since they were young. Bailey Lu felt that Fang Yan was too arrogant and always wanted to steal his limelight. Fang Yan thought that Bailey Lu was too arrogant and put him in a difficult position several times. The first time the two of them competed in martial arts, they had set up a very ridiculous punishment. Unexpectedly, Bailey Lu had kept his promise all along. When Fang Yan was challenged by the Qinya army, Yi Rou rushed to Huaqing, and Bailey Lu also rushed to Huaqing. Yi Rou had a good fight with the Qinya army, while Bailey Lu had a good fight with Fang Yan. Fang Yan knew that whether it was the former or the latter, he would remember this favor deeply in his heart. This time, Bailey Lu was entrusted by Fang Yan to protect Phoenix. A few days ago, he said that he had found suspicious people observing and inquiring around. Fang Yan and Yi Rou arrived in time and finally stopped Bai Xiu and Song transplanting rice. Because of falling into the water, Bailey Lu's clothes were wet. He had a box of matches in his arms, but now it was soaked into a ball and couldn't be used. Bailey Lu was indeed an expert at igniting fires. He found 2 yellow dry stones and rubbed them hard a few times. The sulfur on the stones was ignited. Cha! Bailey Lu used sulfur stones to ignite the quilt in the pile of stones, and then the burning quilt ignited the whole house. Chapter 758. The raging fire was burning, and even the sky was dyed red. Fang Yan and Yi Wen held each other's hands, watching the thick smoke rolling and the sky filled with rays of light. They felt that this scene was quite beautiful and romantic. If there was no Bai Xiu, if there was no Song transplanting rice, they could have lived such a happy life. Unfortunately, that was only if. He was still entangled in hatred with Bai Xiu, Song transplanting rice, and Jiang Junling and the others who had disappeared without a trace, unable to extricate himself. There were thousands of emotions in the world, but only hatred could devour a person's heart. It could turn a person into a non-person and turn a ghost into a malicious spirit. Bailey Lu looked at his work with a proud face and said with a smile, "If Bai Xiu suddenly ran out of the sea of fire, would that be considered a zombie? I've already cheated once, how can I cheat again?" Fang Yan said with a smile. Bailey Lu nodded and said, "If he can still escape like this, then he can only be considered lucky. Let's go, we'll go comfort those monks. They're probably all scared. Let me handle this matter," Fang Yan said aloud. In any case, he now had the identity of a Xian department's official, so it was still very easy for him to handle some matters. "Naturally, it's up to you to handle it," Bailey Lu said with a smile. "You're now a member of the government. Doing this kind of thing is to uphold justice and get rid of evil for the people. If I do this kind of thing, I won't be able to bear the consequences and I won't be able to get rid of a lot of trouble. If you're willing, I'll also give you the identity of a Xian department's official," Fang Yan said with a smile. "What they do is not much different from what the men of Swallow Dock do. Forget it, forget it. I don't want it." Bailey Lu waved his hand repeatedly and said, I've been wholeheartedly practicing martial arts for the sake of our Bailey family's godly fist to conquer the way of heaven as soon as possible. I've just realized the inverse punch, and I'm ready to use it to conquer the way of heaven. It's time to work hard and carefully polish it. There's no time to lose. Bailey Lu looked at Yi Ro with deep emotions and said, I'm not afraid to say it out loud, but when I figured out the inverse punch, I was secretly happy. I thought to myself that if Yi Ro had failed to reach the Heavenly Dao realm, I would be the youngest Heavenly Dao realm expert in Swallow Dock, and I would be the new signature of Swallow Dock. I have always viewed Senior Azure Dragon as my idol, and I always looked forward to the day when I could be like my idol. Bailey Lu sighed heavily and said, what I didn't expect was that Yi Ro had already succeeded in climbing the heavenly way. Since there are already outstanding people leading the way, how can we not bravely chase after them? Fang Yan nodded and said, I understand. I'm just saying. It's a good thing to have your own pursuits. No one will stop you from doing that. Fang Yan was about to go to the front yard to check on the nuns. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan and said, I'll stay here. Maybe Bai Xiu will run out. Yi Ro didn't want to follow Fang Yan to the front yard because there was a phoenix there. She didn't want to put Fang Yan in a difficult position between the two women. Yi Ro wasn't a woman who liked to think about such trivial things in the past, but now that she and Fang Yan had confirmed their relationship, she couldn't help but consider some problems from his perspective. This excuse was very clumsy, but Fang Yan still nodded and said, I'll be right back. It's okay. Yi Ro pursed her lips and smiled. Bailey Lu glanced at Fang Yan and said, I won't go either. I'll stay here and take a look. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I don't want you to go with me. Fang Yan smiled at Yi Ro, turned around and walked towards the front yard. Fang Yan, Yi Ro shouted behind him. Fang Yan turned around and looked at Yi Ro, asking, what's wrong? If it's possible, Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan and said, take her back. There was still no expression on Yi Ro's face, and it was hard to tell what she was feeling at this time. But her eyes were clear and bright, and it seemed that there were no impurities in them. What she says is what she thinks in her heart. She gave people such a feeling. She said that she wanted Fang Yan to take her back and bring the phoenix back, which proved that she really thought so in her heart. She thought it was not convenient for a girl to live here, and it was a pity to give up her youth to be a vegetarian and serve the Buddha. Although she had done something wrong, she was willing to forgive her and give her another chance. Fang Yan's heart was very warm, as if there was a strong but gentle airflow flowing through his body. It flushed all the blocked meridians and acupoints in his body one by one. Every victory could make his soul tremble slightly. Yi Ro was really gentle. Thank you, Fang Yan said softly. I just said take her back, Yi Ro added. Why are you so touched? Fang Yan no longer explained, turned around and ran to the front yard of Lianhua Temple. Looking at the back of Fang Yan running, Bailey Lu said with a smile, he is like Sun Wukong who wreaked havoc in heaven, and you are the Buddha. Only you can subdue him. Yi Ro looked at Bailey Lu with dissatisfaction and said, I am Guanyin Bodhisattva. Bailey Lu felt that Yi Ro had changed a lot. If it was in the past, if he said something she didn't like to hear, she would either ignore it directly or beat him. But now she even knows to refute or joke with him. Is this the charm of love? Bailey Lu thought about it seriously. What is love? Is it as fascinating as Kung Fu? At this time, Yi Ro's expression suddenly became serious. She listened attentively and immediately ran towards the front yard. Bailey Lu grinned and said, women say one thing but mean another. If you say you don't want to go, shit. Before Bailey Lu finished his words, he had already found that the situation was not good. Boom! First came the sound of a mountain torrent. Then, a huge white curtain rolled down from the mountain, as if it was going to cover the entire land. Bastard! Bailey Lu cursed and quickly ran to the front yard. Pa! A huge wave of water rushed over the protective stone at the foot of the mountain and then hit the wall of Lianhua Temple. In just one round, the thick wall made of hard blue stone was washed down by the flood. Kacha, kacha. The flood was like a white giant beast. Wherever it passed, the walls and trees fell and were instantly swallowed by its huge white mouth. The sea of fire that was still burning just now was suddenly extinguished by the water from the sky, and the jumping waves directly rolled over the collapsed house. Because the water flowed from top to bottom, the speed and strength of the impact were quite amazing. In a short time, the whole Lianhua temple would be flooded. Even so, there was still a steady stream of water rushing toward Lianhua temple. A big man in a black suit trotted over and said excitedly, "Young master, all the gaps have been blown up. Now the amount of water released is the highest. I'm afraid that in one round, the whole Lianhua temple will be washed away. Those people will be buried alive. Should we go and beat them when they are down?" An old man looked at the scene of the mountain torrent that seemed to be the Milky Way falling from the ninth heaven, sighed softly in his heart, and said, "It's strange. Mr. Tao Addict and Bai Xiu went down to kidnap a woman. Even if there are people on guard with their cultivation, they would have succeeded long ago. Why haven't they come back yet? And they didn't give us any signal." Jiang Junling looked down with his binoculars. He could see the tragic scene of the flood submerging Lianhua temple, but he couldn't see what was happening in the temple. "Maybe we've been tricked," Jiang Junling said in a low voice. "Tricked? A few days ago, we sent someone to inquire about Lianhua temple. They said that everything is normal in Lianhua temple and there are no experts protecting Phoenix. Although our people deliberately showed up to alert the enemy, they wanted to lure Fang Yan here to make a move. If there are really no experts protecting her, Bai Xiu would have gone down alone and brought everyone back. However, Bai Xiu still hasn't come back. Now Master has gone down with them. With their combat power, they can escape even if they encounter a heavenly Dao realm expert. Since they haven't come back yet, it proves that there is a very powerful person over there. Who is it?" The old man asked aloud. "Fang Yan came in person? If it's only Fang Yan, he is not Mr. Tao Addict's match at all. Emo Qingdi." Emo Qingdi is still in the land of extreme cold. Even if he comes back, he will be a good-for-nothing. Even if they join forces, they won't be able to defeat Mr. Tao Addict. That's why I'm also very curious." Jiang Junling put away his binoculars and said, "Who is it? We have calculated the pawns that Fang Yan can use. Other than himself, there is only Yi Gentle, who has failed to climb the heavenly Dao, and a few of his fellow sufferers. These people aren't even enough to fill the gaps between Master's teeth. Then should we go down and take a look?" The big man asked aloud. "Of course." Jiang Junling nodded and said, "Master and Bai Xiu are still down there. We have to ensure their safety. Take 2 people with you down to take a look. If they are alive, I want to see them. If they are dead, I want to see their corpses. No matter what, you must bring Master and Bai Xiu back." The big man was shocked and said, "Young Master, aren't all of you going down? Why are we going down?" Jiang Junling glanced at him coldly, but his voice was still gentle and firm. He said, "Lianhua temple has been washed away. Even if there are people alive, you will only be beating them when they are down. Don't worry, we will protect you from the side. If there are any changes, we will be able to rush over to support them immediately." The big man knew that it was difficult to change Jiang Junling's decision. He said, "Young Master, I will take some people down to take a look. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.